Yellow. Oof. A bit of a mad dash there for me.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
The SCCA Foundation is a 501c3 organization serving as the charitable arm of the Sports Car Club of America. One of the programs partially funded by the foundation is the SCCA Academy, an online learning management system used to keep real-life racing track officials up to date on the highest standards of race safety and officiating. Through this program, the SCCA Foundation is supporting the future of the best trained corner workers and event officials in motorsport. You can support these efforts at www.sccafoundation.org.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special presentation of the Ray Esports Runoffs here on Apex Racing TV. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall, however, old buddy Josh Wilkie. Over the next 2.5 hours, you're going to get a chance to see everything of what makes the Ray Esports Racing League great. Intense racing action across all three classes, and hard yet respectful racing battling up and down the field. And to bring this 2024 Spring Tour to a close, we're doing it at my version of Heaven on Earth. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a track that really needs no introduction. Thousands of stories have come out of this track over the past 114 years, with the SCCA being a sizable part of this mecca of American auto racing. In 2017 and 2021, the real-life SCCA runoffs were held here, and now in 2024, nearly 115 years to the day of the first ever race of any kind at this wonderful facility, we're here for the 2024 Ray Esports Tour runoffs. First up tonight, we have, as always, the Spec Racer Fords, and with slipstreaming always being the name of the game in these races, I think we're in for a pretty good race. So Charles, to pass this off to you, we had quite a few Roval races this past season, Daytona, Homestead, and New Hampshire, just to name a few. It's fair to say that we have some experience calling these draft-heavy races. So what are you expecting to see at the first race here tonight?
I mean, yeah, it's first and foremost is we've got our draft monsters, the Spec Racer. This is a course that is a Roval, so we're going to have two very, very long straightaways. that we're going to be able to draft off the cars in front, do some bump drafting probably, and it's just going to make for a really exciting race. It should keep the front tight unless we have any big major issues. So yeah, looking forward to another really good race, and yeah, it'd be nice to see these cars on this track. Obviously iconic. You know, it's kind of still on my bucket list to get up here and see a race. So we'll just have to do with the virtual one for the time being.
Well, in fairness, Charles, this is one of the only tracks throughout this entire season that I've been to. Mid-Ohio a few weeks ago was the first, and Indianapolis is the second. I went there, I'm trying to think now, I think I went in 2016, 2017, and 2022 as well. I love it. As I said in my open, it is my version of heaven on earth, albeit I'm a bit of an IndyCar history buff, so that could be the reason why that's the case. But running here at this road course, which was originally built all the way back in 2000 to host Formula One, and that was a very checkered history, we'll say the very least. This infield section that we see Jim Brewster going through was actually added to the course to cater Formula One after the, I can't really call it a Grand Prix that happened in 2005 when only 6 cars took to the starting grid. But anyways, before we talk about some F1 history and try and ignite some very bad flashbacks for some people who were watching the sport back then, we should probably talk about this qualifying session, which has just started. This man, Justin Huffman, who is probably Jamison Huffman, Justin's son, Jamison has occasionally run so far this season, and he's always run with his dad's iRacing account, so this may be a case of deja vu. He is currently our provisional pole sitter 14 minutes into this 15-minute long qualifying session. That's a pretty good lap time as well, 138.099. That's a pretty decent gap to our Spec Racer Ford champion from this past season, that being Miles Trabb, the driver of the 131 car. Absolutely clean clock, and you can actually see him just barely in the back of shots as Huffman head his way through the end of the infield section, that quick little section of turn 8 and 9, which was reorganized and reconfigured quite a lot in this track's fairly short history compared to everything else at this wonderful facility. But we still have a whole lot of time left to go in this qualifying session, so I think we should probably talk about some of the characters that we have running on track with us here this evening, because we do have some familiar faces.
Yeah, we really did. Obviously, we talked about Jamison Huffman, swept the runoffs last season. And so it's going to be interesting. I think we're looking at him and Miles Trabb, who was our season champion in, I think, every category. So it'll be good to see those two guys battle on track. I'm sure that those guys will be looking over their shoulders for the entire race. And Christian Kabanka has just been flying as of late. He hasn't been here for, most of the season. But when he's here, he's on his own point, doing a lot of back to front, and is just really just showing what kind of pace he's really got. So those are kind of the three big ones. Obviously, we've got our other stars here. Josh Justice, Andrew Love, Jim Brewster. Of course, our esteemed race organizer and league organizer Stevie Ray is out there. So it's just going to be fun to watch these guys battle and see how long some of these other cars can hang with that lead draft, and see if we can keep them kind of stacked up for the better part of the 20 minutes of the race.
I think this may be a challenging affair for all of these drivers. 20 minutes of racing action in front of us, and as we just saw from Antonio Reese, who's one of the stalwarts in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warrior Series here on Apex Racing TV every single Sunday. That was 2 spins heading through turn number 1, which on lap 1, that is going to be hectic, but I'll touch on that in a little bit. But just talking about the challenges of this track and car combination, I was trying to get as much practice as I could ever since iRacing came back up after the maintenance that was done on iRacing today, switching over to Season 3 of 2024. I got a little bit of seat time in both the Spec Racer Fords as well as the Spec Miatas that we'll have as the final race this evening, along with the Formula Vs and Formula 4s. And I'll tell you what, the Spec Racer Fords are really, really tricky, and probably the hardest part for me is the braking, trying to get yourself psyched up to try and go deep on the brakes, as deep as you can, heading into some of these corners. It is real tough, but these cars also tend towards, they usually lean towards understeer, at least least when it comes to the usual iRacing baseline setups. So these drivers, they have been trying to practice as much as they can, trying to hone their craft behind the wheel and also hone their setups as well. So that could be the reason why we're seeing a little bit of a spread out field. However, as we get into this qualifying session, we have a lot more drivers setting some more competitive and representative lap times, I should say. We're going to see that field close way up.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And, you know, as much as we love this course, it started getting more, I guess, usage recently in the iRacing service. So, you know, it's only been the last couple of years that we've really had a chance of really running this course. So it might be a little bit of an outlier as far as our normal, I guess, robles, if we want to call it that. It's not like Daytona where we're there seemingly every season. This is a bit of it's like I said, it's a bit of a new one. And so yeah, it's going to be fun to see these drivers pick their lap times up as they get more comfortable in the car. Obviously, very short race, so they don't have just lots and lots of time. But I think you'll see some mistakes made, and you'll see some times pick up as well. But yeah, it's going to be fun. And then, you know, you talked about the iRacing, season build. We got some new cars in the service, but all the cars have got what they've called the new damage model. So now that everybody's on it, it's just the damage model. So they were pretty clear that this is what we were going to be using. So if we have some incidents during the course of the race, you may see some different things happen to these cars than what you're used to seeing. So that might be something we look for and talk about during the race.
That is a very good point to bring up there, Charles, because we've seen in the past, whether it be here with the Ray Esports Racing League every single Tuesday here on Apex Racing TV, or the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warrior Series, occasionally when these cars get front-end or rear-end damage, the front clips and the rear clips usually look like they're made out of tinfoil, and the way they kind of crumple up and look really weird. And sometimes we've also seen them just randomly pulling off the cars. So I guess the front clips on some of these cars may be spring-loaded, maybe used as a weapon for any drivers that may get on their nerves during this race. Is Jim Brewster, who is currently in P7 here in this qualifying session, was running in 8th and improved his way up to 7th. His series admin Stevie Ray currently down in 10th, and we'll see what kind of lap time he can do here between now and the end of this qualifying session, which is coming up in about 5.5 minutes time. Currently doesn't have any draft help though, so that may hurt him and his chances of improving his qualifying time. Up towards the front, it has gotten closer though. Jamison Huffman is still on the provisional pole and has improved his time to 138.017, but Christian Kabanka in P2 has closed in that gap. He's currently second at a 138.168, so that's a pretty good lap time there, and Miles Crab a little bit farther back. But Miles, Charles, you brought up earlier and I brought up as well, he has been the man, he's been the force to be reckoned with all throughout the series. The only reason why he didn't go 4 for 4 in the class is because it's physically impossible to run in the Formula Vs while you're running in the Formula Fords. He won the Spec Racer Fords, he won in the Spec Miatas, and he won the Formula Fords as well. He has been the right man throughout this entire season, and I brought up this point with him when we were having a chat with him at the end of the Watkins Glen broadcast 1 week ago, and I'll bring it up as well. The last man that won the championship in both the Mazda, back when it was the Mazda MX-5s, now with the Spec Miatas, the last person that won in the Mazdas and the Spec Racer Fords in a season here at the Ray Esports Racing League, as Charlie Vaccaro goes for a spin, exiting turn number 12. That was Jamison Huffman, and last year at the Runoffs at Road Atlanta, he just tore everyone up and won in all 3 of those races. So I think maybe we may be seeing a repeat of that. What do you think the chances are that we do see a repeat of that, Charles?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously Jamison's very, very talented in the cars. Miles has had a great season, but the 2 of those guys in the race together is going to make for some interesting racing, and maybe some strategy is going to have to play itself out. And then you just got Kabanka in there who's just trying to win the race. So he's not really, there's no extra thing for him. It's just go out there and try and run as hard as he can for 20 minutes and win the race. So yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. But I don't think it's a cut and dry. I think if we may not see a sweep this season. So it's we'll just have to wait and see, because we got 3 races tonight, and so we'll have to see how that all works.
All 4 of the cars that will be racing here this evening all have their own unique twists and features. We'll see the Spec Racer Fords right now tend a bit more towards understeer when heading through the corners. Then we're going to have the Formula cars later on this evening with the Formula Vs that can only hit about 105 miles an hour with a massive draft and the wind at their backs, racing alongside the Formula Fords, which are about 20 seconds quicker per lap around this track. Lap traffic going to be a big role in that race later on this evening. And then the Spec Miatas, which I think also got that damage so sadly after the strange aerodynamic features we saw on some of the race cars after a lap 1 Schmazel at Watkins Glen last time out. We won't see a repeat of that here this evening. We're following Josh Justice as he heads his way around turn number 10 and back onto the high banks here in just a few moments time before he cuts back into the infield. Justice is playing spoiler to Crab's hopes of getting all 4 championships, as he is your champion from season 12 and the Formula V category. So Justice, a very fast driver as well, and also a driver in Spec Racer Fords as well, so we'll see what he can do rounding his way around turn number 14 before he goes back on to the banking, going on to the start-finish straightaway. We'll see what he can do. He doesn't have a whole lot of draft help. He's currently 10th and is only, my apologies, he's only 7th here, and we'll see if he can jump his way in front of Antonio Reese, who's only 0.02 of a second in front of him across the line for Justice, and I don't think he improved there, so Justice will remain in P7.
Yeah, just about 0.2 slower than his fastest lap that lap. So yeah, you can see how the how the draft is going to play into this. I think it's probably worth a half second a lap, maybe more, just because of the length of these straightaways. So if you're tucked in behind a car, up to a second behind a car, you may pick up a half second going down the front straight or the back straight, either one. So yeah, it's going to be one of those things that we'll have to watch out for. I'm just was looking at Charlie McCarro earlier. It looks like maybe these cars are not handling some of these curbs as well as maybe the drivers would like, especially if the curbs have a little bit of elevation to them. Maybe unsettling the cars, they get back on throttle. So we may see a few solo spins during the course of the night.
Well, the curbs around this track are a bit of a mixed case, because you have some that are flat as pancakes and other ones that'll mess your day right up if you just even glance at them as you drive around this racetrack. So we'll just have to see how these drivers and all 4 of the cars that will be running here this evening, all 3 classes, we'll see how they manage the curbs, because that is going to be huge at a track like this, with those curbs particularly on the inside of turn number 1 and turn 7 that Scott Russell is about to come up to. Those killer curbs on the inside. If you take a big bite of those, it may hurt you, but if you get it done right, you will be able to cut off a decent amount of time. And Jamison Huffman is still at the front. Christian Kabanka in P2 and Miles Crab in 3rd as the checkered flag has come out in this qualifying session. Huffman and Kabanka are in the pits, and Miles Crab is on his out lap, so I don't think he'll get another qualifying time in. So we'll see if the likes of John Vogel and Antonio Reese, Justice, Heffron, Brewster, Carbone, Ray, and Russell can try and improve their qualifying times. Russell running down in P number 12, the last of the qualifiers that we have in this race. We'll see him rounding his way around the final, well, the second to last corner. It's really the final corner that takes any real hard challenge in most race cars. Through turn 13, now through turn 14 for Scott Russell. Is he going to improve on his lap time? I don't think he will, as he runs it way out to the wall. Scott Russell coming across the line. Will he improve on his 1-minute 40.054? I don't think he will, so Scott Russell going to remain in 12th in this qualifying session, which is a little bit spread out. However, come time for the race, where all the cars are going to be in the draft zone, I think it's going to get very hectic when we drop the green flag here in a few moments' time.
Oh yes, absolutely. I can foresee multiple cars trying to attempt to go into turn 1 side by side. So we'll have to watch for that. That'll be the first little hurdle we'll have to cross, and then it's just a matter of getting all the cars settled in and getting in single file, getting the tires and the brakes up to temp, and then we should have a pretty good race.
It's just settling into a groove. That's a big thing when it comes to these races. If you're out of your comfort zone here in the Spec Racer Fords, they will bite you at the nearest opportunity. Antonio Reese is certainly a driver that we rarely see out of his comfort zone in these Spec Racer Ford race cars. He is in the Masters category in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors, and speaking of the Weekend Warriors series, we got the runoffs for that category running this upcoming Sunday at another Roval, that being the Daytona Road Course under the lights. That's going to be a fantastic spectacle here on Apex Racing TV coming up at the end of this week. But Antonio Reese, he's not on a flyer, so I think while we wait for these cars to get going back to the pits, we should probably talk about the sponsor here for the Spec Racer Fords here from the Ray Esports Racing League that have made this series possible, that being Personal Wealth Solutions. Just like in racing, financial planning and investments require a team behind and experience as well. Personal Wealth Solutions creates custom investment and financial planning strategies for select individuals and businesses as well. With over 25 years of experience, their goal is not to have you feel like a number, but make you feel like they're number one. If you'd like to learn more about financial planning run by racers serving racers, head on over to www.personalwealthsolutions.com. We would like to thank Personal Wealth Solutions for being a generous partner of the Ray Esports Racing League, and this qualifying session has wrapped up. I think we'll be able to get the starting grid for you in just a couple of moments. Time 12 cars are going to be on this starting grid, and it's going to be Jamison Huffman or Justin Huffman, whichever one it may be, probably Jamison. He will be leading them to green in that number 223 car. Christian Kabanka is going to join him on the front row. Then we have Miles Crabb in third, Andrew Love in fourth, John Vogel in P number 5, Antonio Reese in sixth, Josh Justice in real life Spec Racer Ford driver. He's going to be starting this race in seventh, Jim Brewster in eighth, Corey Heffron in ninth, Stevie Ray Series admin in P number 10, Anthony Carbone Jr. in P number 11, and Scott Russell will round out the 12 cars to set a qualifying time, with Charlie Vaccaro and Joaquin Effinger making up the final row of the grid. Did not set a time in that qualifying session. And Charles, turn one, I dread to think what may happen in turn number one if one driver just feels a little bit aggressive. How do you think this race is going to be like?
Well, it just depends. It's, you've got three very fast drivers up front, and actually you've got more than that, but three that have kind of set themselves apart from maybe the rest of the grid. So it's just a matter of if they get that good run going down the front straight to take the green flag, you might see them go three wide into turn one. I don't think we're going to get a NASCAR type turn one where they're like 5 or 6 wide, locking the brakes up going down into turn one. So yeah, but it's going to be racy up front, and we'll just hope that they keep themselves off of the other cars, and we end up having a really good race for 20 minutes.
Oh my God, we've got a Spec Racer Ford car merging in with a Porsche pace car. Jamison Huffman feeling a little bit playful as we start this shortened pace lap. And I'll tell you what, regardless of what will happen in this Twilight race we have coming up, it's going to be exciting, I feel, but regardless of what happens, we are going to have a Spec Racer Ford end up in victory lane from the first race here this evening. And I think I should probably talk about some of the history around this track, because I'm an IndyCar history buff and just a generally speaking, a racing history buff. So I want to share this little tidbit about Ford at this track. Across the 108 runnings of the Indy 500, Ford has only made their way into victory lane on 8 occasions, that being in 1965 with Jim Clark, 1966 with Graham Hill, 1967 with A.J. Foyt, 1969 with Mario Andretti, 1970 and 71 with Al Unser Sr., and finally Jacques Villeneuve in 1995 and Buddy Lazier all the way back in 1996. And as it stands currently, even with these slick IndyCar monsters that we have barreling around this track every single May, Arie Luyendyk still has the track record in a Ford Cosworth XB V8 powered IndyCar all the way back in 1996. So Ford does have a little bit of a pedigree here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we're about to see 14 Spec Racer Fords take the green from the first race of the 2024 Spring Tour Runoffs. Jamison Huffman is going to have a fantastic view of probably the most iconic straightaway in all of racing, and he is going to be leading them to green here for the first race of the evening. We're waiting for that green flag to come out, which it has now, and the drivers are on their way. It is an incredibly long run until they even think about getting on the brakes into turn number one. You can see some bump drifting already between Huffman and Crabb as Kabanka is all by himself on that outside. It's going to be a battle of last late breakers with Kabanka and Huffman side by side heading their way into turn number one. Drivers going 3 wide, a little bit farther in the back. Drivers feeling quite racy. That's Andrew Love looking to get a move done on Miles Crabb to move his way into P number 3. Some drivers shuffling around all throughout the field, and they're still side by side heading their way out of turn number 1, 2, and 3. 3 and into 4. They're about to head their way through the 5 and 6 chicane, which has to be single file. We already have a big schmozzle behind. I see Scott Russell involved in that, along with Stevie Ray. We have a whole bunch of cars around heading through turn number 4. I think there may have been a little bit of contact. We'll have to take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened there. But meanwhile, at the north end of the field, Kabanka and Crab are side by side heading their way into turn number 7. A very good overtaking opportunity if you get it right, but also a very easy opportunity for your competitors to pass if you make some sort of mistake. But Kabanka pulled that off smoothly as he's gotten his way back into second. But this man, Justin Huffman, is leading them coming out of the infield and back onto the oval.
Yeah, a little bit of a kerfuffle there in the back, but good start up front, and you can already see the bump drafting being worked, kind of a 2 versus 1 up in the front, where a couple cars, a car in back, just chooses which guy he wants to push, and they try and work their way around. And we'll probably see much more of that before it's all over. Did see Justice. I'm not sure who it was. It might have been Carbone that was back there with him, and they were bump drafting and made up a lot of ground in the mid-pack. And so, yeah, it's just going to be one of those that we'll kind of watch as we already see them spreading out too wide and looking for that bump drafting in. And Crab has chosen to stay high this time.
And we're seeing Kabanka try and get that move done down the inside. That was a big curb whack on the inside turn number 1, trying to take the lead from Jamison Huffman. However, he just wasn't close enough to get that job done. Now Miles Crab may look to try and overtake him around the outside heading into turn number 4. That would have been a bold and audacious move if he made it sick. He backed Avedon. And you could see Andrew Love dicing around the racetrack, trying to find a way to get past Miles Crab. And that was a pretty close call with the track limits with Justin Huffman. He may have picked up a slowdown there, as I think he's losing a whole lot of speed. Actually, no, that's just a camera angle. He is not losing speed. However, Crab and Kabanka are going side by side heading into turn number 7. We're going to see if these two have a repeat of what happened last lap, and they make contact midway through the corner. That is Crab and Kabanka still battling hard, with Crab winning out this time and moving his way into second. I think we'll take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened further towards the back of the field on lap number 1.
Yeah, as you'll see here, we've got looking at Carbone as he's coming down, and he's coming up to the side of Jim Brewster and just pushes a little bit, a little hard on the brakes, maybe locks the fronts up, pushes into Brewster on the outside. I think everybody just kind of is checking up at that point, just trying to avoid making further contact. Get another view here from Scott Russell's cockpit. Yep, so you should see, another, actually, I tell you what, there was another lockup up front. I think that was Vogel as well. So there might have been a little bit of a panic break there from Carbone as he saw the smoke from the car in front.
I forget what the phenomenon is called that starts most traffic jams, when one driver hits a brake and everyone responds. That's pretty much what happened with these drivers heading through turn number 4 at the beginning of the race. And Miles Crab trying to get a move done on Jamison Huffman heading into turn number 1. Not close enough. However, they're still quite racy side by side, rounding their way around turn number 3. Crab's going to be stuck on the outside, heading through 4 as Kabanka is slotting his way into second, trying to battle hard. And you can see Antonio Reese sticking his nose in that as well. This is going to be very close as they head through the chicane. Very close to making contact, but Kabanka is still going to be exiting that corner with P2. However, Crab has a fantastic run. He's suckling on the draft coming from Jamison Huffman's car, and now they're going to be side by side heading into turn number 7. Crab on the outside, Kabanka on the inside with Antonio Reese looking to pick up the pieces. If those two drivers come to blows, they get through that corner clean, but heading through 8 and 9, they single file out, and Crab slots his way back into second. And usually, when talking about these Spec Racer Ford races, we describe them as 120-mile-an-hour games of leapfrog, and I think it's going to get put on full display here tonight.
I think you may be right. Sorry about that. A little bit of a hiccup there. Yeah, I'm actually enjoying watching these guys up front battle, because it's actually keeping Love, as we just gets a little bit wide there, gets in the grass. Love and Reese is keeping them in that fight, as Love is really pushing hard, just trying to keep up with these guys up front. And it's bringing Vogel in and Heffron as well. And it's just one of those that when they battle up front, they slow themselves down going through corners. Combine that with the big draft that you're getting sitting behind somebody, and it just makes it a very, very tight pack up in the front and makes for some really good racing.
Now, I actually lied earlier on in this broadcast. 25 minutes of racing action that we have in front of us, and we have 5.5 minutes down already, and we see Vogel running in P number 6. He was using all the track limits coming out of turn number 1 and 2. He's trying to hold off Corey Heffron right behind, who's moved up 2 spots, and you can see the movers and shakers so far in this race. Jameson Huffman, he hasn't moved anywhere. He is still in the lead of this race where he started it. Miles Crabb up 1 spot, Kabanka down 1. Antonio Reese is up 2. That's a pretty good start for him, but we may see, okay, it's not close enough for Miles Crabb heading into turn number 7 to get the move done on Jameson Huffman to take the lead of the race. But we already have some movers and shakers in this race, and we still haven't even gotten close to the halfway mark. We're seeing them. It's a massive train that we have of Spec Racer Ford race cars. Huffman, Crabb, Kabanka, and Reese covered by about 3/4 of a second as they come out of turn number 10. We have a beautiful shot of them rounding their way and hitting the transition, going from the flat part on the infield into the banking, and now Crabb trying to get that move done to take the lead of the race. Fairly textbook stuff, but he runs wide, and now he's going to be at risk of losing that spot yet again to Jameson Huffman. He is going to pull him behind, and he's going to enjoy that slipstream going on to the start-finish straightaway. This is going to be a dogfight as they head into turn number 1 at the start of lap number 5 in just a few moments' time. Huffman already using that run coming on to start lap number 5. He is going to be leading it yet again. Crabb stuck on the outside, and you've got Kabanka and Reese battling hard. You can see Kabanka maybe trying to go for the 2-for-1 deal, getting past Crabb, and maybe trying to get past Huffman heading into turn number 1. Christian Kabanka with some fairly audacious stuff. They make contact heading through turn number 1. This is close quarters action at the start of the race, and there's contact behind with Antonio Reese trying to slip it down the inside of Miles Crabb and just misjudged it horribly. Heading into turn number 2, made side-to-side contact and spun himself around. Kabanka is leading at Huffman and P2, and they're still side-by-side heading their way through the 5 and 6 chicane. Now they're on the back straightaway, and we're going to see them side-by-side yet again. Miles Crabb may try and pick up a run from these two as well. You can see them very, very close, with Huffman taking a very aggressive line, not running out to the curb. He's pretty much tracking it down the center of the racetrack, going down that back straightaway, and he's going to retake the lead of the race with Kabanka sliding his way back into P number 2. I think we're going to have to take a look at a replay to see what happened to Antonio Reese as they went through that 1 and 2 chicane to start off lap number 5. I think that was just way too over-aggressive and way too over-ambitious towards the beginning of this race, and sadly it bit him badly.
Yeah, he's looking. He stays on the outside line, coming through 1, gets a good run, obviously, and yet just tries to kick it to the inside there. I think maybe Crabb got held up with them going too wide in front, and yeah, just really ran out of racing room there. Unfortunate for Reese. Obviously, very talented racer. We see him on Sundays in the Weekend Warriors. He's usually running up near the front like he is tonight, but yeah, just a little bit of contact side by side and just loops the rear end of the car around. He's still on the track, did not see a lot of damage to the car, so he'll see if he can work his way back up. As you said, we do have 25 minutes in this race, so a little bit of extra time to make up some ground if you fall back, as we see Crabb finally working his way to the front. Huffman in second, Kabanka in third.
Well, it took us 8.5 minutes, about 6 laps of racing action as well, but we finally got the 3-wide action heading into turn number 1 that we just saw. Crabb, Huffman, and Kabanka battling hard. They're also breaking away from Andrew Love in P number 4, and with the incident that we saw for Antonio Reese, this has turned into a 3-car pack, and we may see how that shakes up between now and the checkered flag. We're about to hit that 10-minute mark in this race, so 15 left to go. Doing the math in your head, they're very simple math, as we have a battle between Brewster and Justice heading into turn number 7 as Huffman and Crabb battle hard with Huffman retaking the lead of this motor race. We still have some hard close action between Brewster and Justice, with Antonio Reese now looking to cut his way back through the field. He's probably very upset with what happened heading through turn number 1 not very long ago, and I think we're going to take a look at a replay to see what just happened to Antonio Reese. This was another incident heading into turn number 7. Was this just simply running wide, and you can see him carrying a whole lot of speed. Big lockup. That inside front tire has probably been turned into a rectangle after that.
Yeah, I think so. He was actually making up time on the leaders because of their battling, and he was kind of catching up to the back of Brewster and Justice as I was watching, and yeah, just locked up the car, just maybe pushing a little bit too hard, and so lost a little bit of time, and so he's going to have to just kind of reset and start his trek back up to the front again.
And And here we go, Kabanka trying to trek his way up towards the front of the field yet again. Miles Crabb, this time last lap, was in the lead of the race. Now he's down to third. It shows you the game of leapfrog that we just mentioned. These Spec Racer Ford races are always hectic from start to finish, with a whole lot of leaping, especially when trying to decide the winner and podium finisher from these races. It's Huffman leading it, Kabanka in P2, and Crabb in P3 and lap number 7. And Scott Russell has had an issue. He's gone down pit lane, so I think he may have had some sort of incident or maybe a connection issue. Yeah, you can see Scott Russell down in the pits, and I think that is a damaged and bruised and battered Spec Racer Ford race car. So I think we're going to take a look at a replay to see what happened to Russell in the number 22 car, heading his way through turn number 1, 2, and 3 there. He was mega sideways coming out of the chicane, and I think running very, very slow. You can see some damage on that car already. Yeah. I think he had an incident before that gave him some really bad suspension damage, and heading his way through 5 and 6, I think he just decided to call it quits.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The way he put that corner, and you can see the right rear damage on the car. I just think he's got maybe some wheel damage, suspension damage on that right rear. And, he said, you know what? It's probably not worth it for me to hang around out here trying to muscle this car around the track, and I think I'm just going to take it to the pits.
I mean, we've seen some pretty damaged-looking race cars so far this season. That wasn't the most damaged one we saw. However, he decided to take the high road and come in to repair that damage. And Kabanka and Huffman are still trading blows, and we may see Crabb try and make a 3-wide. No, he's actually giving the bump to Huffman heading into turn number 1. The bump drift plays such a massive role in these races, and with 3 cars running up towards the front, someone is going to be the odd man out. Huffman muscling his way around the outside, heading through the 1 and 2 chicane. That was a beautiful move to take and grab on the lead of the race. That was beautiful from Jamison Huffman heading through that opening section at the start of lap number 8. It's still not over yet. We haven't even reached the halfway mark. I think we will in a matter of only 10 seconds time, and we've probably seen about 10 or 15 changes for the lead thus far. So hey, if that first half of the race is anything to go by, we're going to have a nuts race between now and the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about the damage didn't look that bad, but with the changes to the damage model, it could look a lot worse than, or it could be a lot worse than it looks. We just don't know, and that's one of those things that time will tell. Maybe we'll get some indicator from Russell in maybe the Discord. He may pop a note in there, and if he does, obviously we'll pass it along. But yeah, so far it's just been that one solo incident. We've had obviously a couple of lockups and a few spins, but it seems to be his is the only car that need to be brought to the pits for repairs.
Yeah, and even Stevie Ray, who I believe towed back to the pits after that lap 1 turn for Shamazel, he's rejoined the race and is still on the lead lap, about a minute behind our leader, Jamison Huffman, going on to the start-finish straightaway yet again. We're riding on board with Christian Kabanka, and we're probably going to see Kabanka attempt again a pass to take the lead of this race. He's closing. The drift's so important in these Spec Racer Fords, and he's going to try and go down the inside, heading into turn number 1. Battle last late breakers again. Who's going to prevail? Huffman on the outside, Kabanka on the inside, and every single time they go side by side, it starts to feel a bit more aggressive. I think there may have been a hip check from Huffman to Kabanka heading through turn number 2. That looked very close to contact as they head through that first chicane, and we got some hard battling still with them going side by side heading through 4. Huffman and Kabanka are trading blows like it's a final lap of the race, and that was a big corner cut from Huffman. That was a pretty substantial whack on the suspension, but thankfully for him, he didn't pick up a slowdown, which is a point that we should probably mention a lot for this finish. The track limits are fairly unforgiving at this circuit, but right now, still side by side, Kabanka on the inside heading through turn 7. Huffman trying to sweep around the outside to hold on to the lead of the race, and he does it beautifully. That was fantastic stuff from Jamison Huffman at the end of this 9th lap of the race. Man, I feel like as these drivers start to battle even harder as we near that checkered flag, I feel like something's going to break here. Is it going to be them battling so hard that Andrew Love gets dragged up into that fight? It's only 1.7 seconds between himself and Huffman, and we still have about 15 minutes left to go. Or are we going to see some fisticuffs break out with those top 3?
Fisticuffs feel pretty likely, but just from them going from the side-by-side from turn 1 through turn 4, everybody behind them picked up about a second. So the more they keep doing that, it's just going to draw Love in there, and if it keeps continuing, then the other cars get closer and closer and closer. Antonio Race is back there setting some really good lap times. He's basically running the leader's pace. So if this hangs, if they keep doing that, then you just never know what's going to happen. Who's going to actually take the win. They could all just bend themselves and Love gets the victory just out of being the last survivor. You just never know. But so far they've been clean. They've been running hard, but they've been clean, and we hope that continues for the next 10 minutes.
Every single time they head their way through the 5 and 6 chicane, I see Jameson Huffman, I should say, get a bit more aggressive. And oh my God, there's contact. That was a big bump and run from Miles Crabbe to the back of Jameson Huffman's race car as they head into turn number 7. I think Crabbe just horribly misjudged his braking, and now there's a little bit of front end damage on the front end of that number 131 car. That may affect him when it comes time to deciding the winner of this race. Does he have suspension damage, or is it merely aerodynamic damage? Either way, that is not ideal for Miles Crabbe. I'm not sure what happened. I think he may have just outbroke himself heading into turn number 7. Target fixation perhaps, but nevertheless, and oh, we have more contact with Kabanka and Huffman heading through turn number 12. Again, these drivers battling so hard, and it's brought Andrew Love back in the fight. This is now a 4-horse race between the drivers at the north end of the field. We're about to start lap number 11, and we've probably had about 11 times these drivers have made contact thus far. Probably 11 times they made contact just in that last lap alone. That was tough heading through. Right as I was mentioning that Huffman was really aggressive on the curbs heading through the 5 and 6 chicane. We see the two drivers up towards the north end of the field touch, and now we're seeing them battle yet again. Huffman, Crabbe, side by side through turn number 1. It's a formula we've seen so far all throughout this race, and Huffman sweeping around the outside. It looks like he's going to take the lead, and he does. Beautiful stuff from Miles Crabbe, and now it's going to be Justin Huffman on the offense trying to hold off any sort of challenge from Kabanka, and I think we're going to have a beautiful view to see what Huffman does heading through the chicane yet again. He clobbers those curbs every single time. A little bit less aggressive this time. I think him clobbering those curbs has hurt his run in the past, and now we have some bump drafting between the two of them as Kabanka is feeling quite racy right behind. Right as I was mentioning, I think it was probably about 5 laps ago, I mentioned how with 3 cars running up towards the front, someone was going to be the odd man out when it came to bump drafting, but now that we have Andrew Love involved in that fight, no one's going to be left accounted for, so it's just a matter of pick your partner and stick with them for dear life.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, Love picked up 3.5 tenths down the front straight on the last lap as those guys decided they were going to go too wide again, and it's just kept him in this battle. And so now we're getting just a little short shoot here on the back stretch, and just tough inside curve there. Got to be very careful. So yeah, he's in the mix now as well. So yeah, it's going to be partner up and let the two fastest cars up, prevail. My guess is it will end up too wide going out of the one again.
I would not be shocked about that in the slightest. We're going to get a beautiful view from Andrew Love, and you can see well north of 110 miles an hour before he even hits that yard of brakes. You can see the pace that he has, just top speed-wise, going down the start-finish straightaway, clicking to about, I think I saw 131 very briefly. Didn't get to 132. However, he was carrying a whole lot of speed heading into turn number 1. Getting these cars slowed down is tricky enough as is, but we've seen these drivers be really aggressive in the braking zones. Entering these corners, it is going to be intense between now and the checkered flag. We have 19 minutes on the board, so only 6 minutes left on the clock, and we're going to see these drivers get even more aggressive than they already have. Huffman yet again really aggressive on the curbs, heading through the chicane, and yet again giving the bump draft to Miles Crabbe. I think these drivers may have realized after, about 17 minutes of heart-pumping racing action, they're like, hey, to finish first you have to finish. So I think these drivers finally realized, hey, if we're going to keep battling as hard as we will, we're going to end up in the barriers and on the grass. I think these drivers finally realized, let's take it easy, let's try and manage our race, and let's get to about 1 or maybe even 2 laps to go. Then we can start battling hard. Knowing my luck, they're probably going to prove me wrong, and we're going to see them 4 wide going down the start-finish straightaway in about 15 seconds time.
Yeah, maybe so. And I was just kind of looking at the timing and scoring from our SDK graphics. And that little draft down the front stretch is, like I said, 3.5 tenths, and it doesn't seem like a lot. And it's really not. It's only 4 or 5 miles per hour in top speed. But that, it's kind of like, moving to the left lane and passing a car, and you're really only going 4 or 5 miles an hour faster than them. But you go by them pretty quick, and then you can just jump back in the other lane. And here we go, 3 wide, headed down to 1.
Making me out to be a damn fool they are. Cabanca on the inside, Huffman in the middle, and Crab on the outside. They're going to single file out heading into turn number 1. For now, though, Cabanca runs wide. You have to take that shallow line heading into turn number 1, and that nearly cost him his shot at the lead. Huffman, it looked like he was going to try and slip a wheel, maybe even into the dirt to get his way back past Cabanca. However, he is slotting in. He's realizing, hey, turn 7, that is a good opportunity if I want to try and take the lead of this race. Usually in these spec racer Ford races, we have a rough idea as to who's going to win, but with how topsy-turvy this race has been, I have no idea who's going to be the one taking the checkered flag. As I said before, to finish first you have to finish. If the drivers can keep it clean, they're all going to have a great shot to win. That was aggressive bump drafting going down that back straightaway for both Cabanca and Huffman. They were just locked the bumper to bumper going down there. I think if they bump drafted for probably another 50 meters, we may have seen a driver end up in the barrier, or at least into the runoff area heading into turn number 7. These drivers are risking it for the biscuit. Hey, it's the runoffs. They're going to put everything on the line to try and grab that checkered flag, and it is still not over yet. We're going to have a few more laps to go once they cross the start-finish line in a few moments' time. This is going to be tense between Cabanca, Huffman, and Crab. Love has actually dropped back a little bit, so I think it's back to being a 3-horse race, but it's still going to be heart-pumping.
Yeah, it is going to be heart-pumping, because I think now this last couple of laps they've got here is basically they're just gauging to see, do I need to be in second or third coming out of that final corner to get the run that's going to get me to the start-finish line first. And so that's kind of the feel, I think, that what we've seen the last couple of laps is why they're not battling as hard as they are. Of course, now they're going through turn 2 too wide again. But so when we're at like Homestead, third place was the place to be. You were getting such a massive draft, and it was such a long run down to the start-finish line that you were just building all that speed up, and it was a pretty easy run. Here, I don't know, because of the way the final corner running down to the finish line, I don't know if the run's long enough. As we're seeing, I'm still 3 wide looking down here into turn 7, I believe. So yeah, still fighting side by side and just kind of jockeying for position, getting ready for that last lap.
We got some battling here with Brewster and Heffron side by side heading into turn number 7. We've touched bases on this Heffron, Brewster, and Justice fight all throughout this race. It's really turned into the Heffron and Brewster shows. They've started to pull away a teeny tiny bit from Josh Justice. However, he's still within the draft and still within striking distance as we're heading towards the conclusion of this race. I don't think we're going to be taking the white flag this time by. I think we'll be on 2 to go, but nevertheless, not a whole lot of time left for these drivers to make some inroads. And I'll tell you what, at that battle we had up towards the north end of the field, which is still hot as they go through turn number 14 right now, we nearly had a hideous accident between Huffman and Cabanca. I nearly saw Jameson Huffman right hook Cabanca going down that back straightaway. That nearly ended in tears for all of them, and you can see the aggressive line that Cabanca is taking, running all the way to the inside wall like he's driving an IndyCar going down the start-finish straightaway here. He's going to try and hold off to that inside line, force Cabanca to go the long way around turn at number 1. All these cars have some damage on them, and they've all been battling as hard as they possibly can. That was a pretty hard curb whack from Miles Crab heading through turn number 1. Pretty intense stuff between all of these drivers, and a little bit farther towards the back, Justice trying to slip his way past Corey Heffron to move into P number 6. They're going to be side by side. They single file out heading through the chicane. I think Heffron may have some sort of slowdown or maybe some sort of damage. It looks like he's weaving, trying to figure out what sort of suspension damage he may have on that race car. But up towards the front of the field, Cabanca, Huffman, and Crab are covered by barely any air, only a half a second, separating them going down the back straightaway into turn at number 7 for what I think is the final time, and Huffman is going to be leading them heading through here. He runs a little bit wide, though. All of them have terrible runs heading through turn number 7, and they're still incredibly close yet again. Love, if these drivers come to blows, Love is going to be the one to pick up the pieces, and we'll be able to take a podium and the checkered flag depending on how serious the contact is. They're going onto that small little flat out blast between turns 10 and 12. This is the final heavy braking zone on this lap. Is Huffman going to be a sitting duck compared to Cabanca? They're going side by side heading into turn number 12. It's going to be close, and they're making contact midway through the corner. Huffman's going to have that inside line heading through turn 13, but Cabanca is not going to give in. He's going to have that draft if he has a good enough run here. They're coming to the checkered flag. Will it be Cabanca? Will it be Huffman? They may be side by side going onto the start finish straightaway. The final time, Huffman taking a really aggressive line, trying to break that slipstream. It's not going to be enough for Cabanca. Cabanca. Justin Huffman wins the runoffs in the Spec Race of Fords here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in a heart-pumping finish after 25 minutes of racing action, only about a tenth of a second separating the two of them as they came to take the checkered flag. And in all that chaos, Miles Crabb dropped back like a rock and ended up down in P number 4. So hey, not ideal race if you're just focusing on the runoffs, but hey, he won the series championship. He is not going to complain. I think we have a whole lot of replays to touch on. This was a fight between Brewster, Justice, and Heffron heading through turns 1 and 2, and this was Brewster sliding his way into P at number 7 as Heffron had a little bit of damage. I think that wasn't even him just weaving. I think that may have been just a sideways snap heading through turn number 1, but nevertheless it hurt out Heffron a little bit, and this was a fairly textbook move from Justice heading into turn 1 to take P6. Nicely played from the driver of the number 99 car towards the end of this race. But I think the main attraction was that fight up towards the lead. Talk us through it here, Charles.
Yeah, so here we go down for the last time into turn 1, side by side, Cabanca and Huffman. As we see Cabanca get out to the front, and then Crabb kind of setting up himself up here as we're running our way down through 3 and 4, getting that little infield straightaway, getting that lined up here. That's going to get us that run down into turn 7. Yeah, I was kind of curious, is he going to slow down here? Just kind of figure out why he ended up in 4th. And so I think we're going to see it here pretty soon. So he got a good run there as they go into 7. And still looking, still running, single file. Yep, there it is.
That may have
Slow
been
down right there. Yep, that's absolutely what it was. He was over the white line, just cut too much of the corner, had to lift, give up some time. That allowed Love to get around and kind of took him out of the fight for the win. But Jameson Cabanca continued on and gave us quite a show here as we were coming through the last couple of corners. Nice little slide there by Huffman. Try and get the run up the front straight, and just not enough time for Cabanca to get that run back and make a move. Did move to the outside, but just not enough. Huffman wins by about a car length, 10th to the second.
Give Cabanca a hell of a lot of credit, though. He fought like hell all throughout that entire race to try and take that checkered flag. Just sadly, it was a little bit too late towards the end of it. Not ideal, but hey, he still ended up in 2nd, and I believe it was Justin Huffman behind the wheel of that race car, and I think we may be able to have a chat with him in the not too distant future. And I think maybe we have a small little technical issue, possibly.
That's kind of what it looks like to me.
Yeah, we Josh, can you hear us? Are we all by ourselves? Oh, okay. So we're good. Right. I was really worried that we had lost our producer there for a second, and we may be all right commentators, but we have no idea what we're doing when it comes to producing stuff. You're a lot better at that job than we are. So, anyways, I think we'll talk about the results from this evening's race and take a look at the results. From the 14 cars that started, I believe only 11 of them ended up taking the checkered flag. Antonio Reese dropped out of the race towards the end of it. Not ideal for him. It was a tough little mistake that he had that hurt him quite a lot. And here are the results. Justin Huffman is the one taking the checkered flag, less than a tenth of a second separating himself and Christian Cabanca towards the end of it. That was a dogfight between those two, along with Miles Crabb. Andrew Love ends up in 3rd. Didn't get that slowdown heading through turn number 10, and he ends up rounding out your podium. Miles Crabb may be a bit disappointed with how this race went for him. However, P4 in the runoffs and a championship to boot from this past season, he is not going to be complaining about that one single bit. Jonathan Vogel ends up in P at number 5. Josh Justice in 6th. Jim Brewster in 7th. Corey Heffron in 8th. Anthony Carbone Jr. in P9. Charlie Vaccaro in 10th. Stevie Ray is going to round out the cars that actually took the checkered flag with Antonio Reese in 12th. Joaquin Effinger in 13th. And Scott Russell in P14, rounding out the results from this Spec Race of Ford race here at the runoffs. And I will note, I believe Antonio Reese ended up taking the fastest lap of the race as well. So despite the fact he finished down in 12th, he still took the fastest lap. So I guess not a whole lot to complain about if you're the world of Antonio Reese. And we do have Mr. Justin Huffman waiting in the interview waiting area. So, Charles, would you like to have a chat with him?
Absolutely. Let's talk to Mr. Huffman. We can figure out which one it is. So, do we have Justin or Jameson?
It's Jameson.
Hey, Jameson, congratulations. That was a really, really good race. 3-car battle up front, but you guys kept fighting so hard. It kept bringing other cars back up into it. And, but in the end, it was just a straight line run down out of the last corner between you and Cabanca, and you get the victory by about a 10th of a second.
Yeah, it was a really fun race. Honestly, I was just kind of having fun with it. I wasn't doing too much to work. I was just kind of having fun with going too wide because we were all keeping it pretty respectable. So I was just getting focused in the fight and not really thinking about long term, but it ended up working in my favor. So
yeah, so we talked about the race a little bit, and we talked about the changes to the car, specifically with the damage model. Obviously, you guys we were looking at the replay of where you've decided you're going to try rubbing the paint off of your car, the front of your car, using the back of somebody else's car from the bump drafting. But is there anything else that just kind of feels a little different since we've had the iRacing update?
it still feels mostly the same. It feels like cold tires. It feels like the tires fall off a little bit more now. Like it's definitely more noticeable, the tire fall off, or at least it feels noticeable. But
Okay.
it also, I did realize that with bump drafting, the noses don't get damaged as easily as they were. So that's a lot nicer now that you can actually bump draft without crinkling your nose.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we see, like I said, we saw the scrape marks, but not necessarily the crunching of it. Although we did see one of the cars that had some damage to the right rear, maybe the suspension maybe just a little bit easier to damage if you're making side by side contact. So maybe something we have to watch out for. But hey, congratulations on the win. So that's race 1. So we'll get ready for race 2. I'm assuming you're going to be back for the rest of the races tonight.
I'm just doing V's because I don't think I ever did a Mazda race, so
Okay.
I'm just gonna be running V's. But
All right, well, sounds good. Well, we'll see you the next time around. Congratulations.
thank you.
All right.
And that was Jamison Huffman, the winner in the Spec Racer Fords here this evening. The case of mistaken identity continues because, I mean, the viewers here on Apex Racing TV cannot see it, but Charles, you can attest for this. His name in Discord is Justin Huffman, so I thought we had Justin on our hands, but instead we have Justin's son, Jamison. So the case of mistaken identity continues. I think it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo episode when they unmask the villain, quote-unquote. Jamison Huffman isn't a villain, obviously, but kind of something like that. Anyways, we have the Formula Cars coming up later on this evening. The Formula Car is going to be hectic, and we'll talk a lot before we start that race about the Formula action that we have coming up for you in just a few moments' time. The Spec Racer Fords were pretty good, hard battling all throughout, and we're only getting started here tonight. Coming up are the Formulas, and we hope you stay tuned here on Apex Racing TV to watch that race after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
The SCCA Foundation is a 501c3 organization serving as the charitable arm of the Sports Car Club of America. One of the programs partially funded by the foundation is the SCCA Academy, an online learning management system used to keep real-life racing track officials up to date on the highest standards of race safety and officiating. Through this program, the SCCA Foundation is supporting the future of the best trained corner workers and event officials in motorsport. You can support these efforts at www.sccafoundation.org.
To make the great racing action that we have here from the Ray Esports Racing League possible every single season, you have to have some pretty good sponsors. And here for the 2024 Spring Tour Runoffs, we have a pretty good one in the form of the SCCA Foundation. And joining us now here on Apex Racing TV to talk a little bit about the SCCA Foundation as a whole is someone who I've known for many, many moons, a fellow Philly region SCCA alumni, that being Jeff Jacobs. Jeff, welcome here to Apex Racing TV. And would you like to talk the viewers through all the wonderful stuff that the SCCA Foundation does?
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Ron. Yeah, we're really proud to co-host or help sponsor the broadcast here tonight. And Stevie does such a terrific job with this, the e-racing program for the SCCA here, and you can tell by the enthusiasm with the work the drivers put on out there. The level of seriousness and the racecraft that we saw in that first race. I know we're going to see it these next two races too. Is really impressive. I think it represents the SCCA well. But hey, SCCA Foundation, we're really excited. We're sort of the charitable arm of the SCCA. One of our big programs is the Tire Rack Street Survival Program for teen drivers, and we're really having a banner year this year. In 2023, SCCA regions hosted 22 teen street survival schools. This year, we already have 32 on the book. So the SCCA regions are stepping up in a big way to support this program. We're getting teens some of that critical car safety training that's helping to save lives, and we're really excited about that program. Of course, the Women on Track program continues to grow, and you see a lot of announcements on their social media webpage, on the SCCA webpage. So looking for opportunities to make sure that SCCA races and leadership positions and club volunteer positions are all a welcoming environment for women in the SCCA. So those are just two of the quick programs that we support, and of course we're happy to support the efforts of Stevie and the team here with the e-racing program.
I'm very happy to say that the Philly region has been one that's shown off quite a lot of the programs that the SCCA has to offer. You brought up the Street Survival program, and I've remembered on many times talking about that during the pre-race drivers meeting before the events, always at 9:45 in the Philly region, and also the Women on Track program. I know, my former junior karters, that being a Sir and Miss Kate Bangs, has always been a part of that for quite some time. So, Jeff, thank you for joining us and having a quick little chat about the SCCA Foundation. Will we see you on track this evening, maybe in the Spec Miatas we have coming up?
Oh, that would be fun. But I didn't have time to run in the regular series, so I figured I'm going to let the folks who earned their spot out there on track this season to run the runoffs, and then maybe I'm going to jump in on this next season.
That would be very nice to see. I know I may try and poke you with a stick during the other Monday races we do together with Extremes. I may try and get you back on track here at the Ray Esports Racing League. And hey, you can still run in the Spec Miatas if you want. We would love to see you out there on track. And it may give me a little something to joke about when we talk again next Tuesday.
All right.
Monday, I should say.
Yeah, thanks so much. Great job with the broadcast, everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. And that was Jeff Jacobs from the SCCA Foundation joining us here on Apex Racing TV. And we've got the formulas coming up. And I'll tell you what, these cars have put on some pretty darn good shows all season long. Well, we also have some pretty split racing as well. We've got the Formula Fords and the Formula Vs. Tonight is probably going to be no different in the action regard. But when it comes to how the race may go, the half and half nature of this track may create a tough challenge when it comes to dealing with lap traffic and with a pretty big pace disparity between the Formula Vs and the Formula Fords. I think lap traffic is going to be pretty difficult if you're one of these drivers. What do you think, Charles?
I think you're absolutely right. It seems like lap traffic always kind of creeps in during these multi-class formula races. I don't expect it to be any different tonight. It's navigating traffic is one of the things that these guys have to learn, and it's not always in these races. You have to kind of learn that in some of the other leagues as well, or other official races with some of the bigger, faster cars. But it's a skill that you need if you're going to be a successful racer, is navigating cars that are slower than you, and actually navigating cars that are faster than you as well. So it's one of those things that it's a skill that these racers have to pick up. Usually goes pretty well. Sometimes not so much, but these drivers have done it, I think, as well as any league that I've kind of been involved with, especially with the nature of these cars being the fact that you really don't have a lot of room for error. If you hit another car, you're going to damage something because of the way these open wheel cars are built. You end up either making wheel-to-wheel contact, doing wheel or suspension damage, or you get tangled up with another car and you get iRacing magnets attach you to them, and you end up like a binary star. You're just kind of revolving around each other until somebody resets. So yeah, it's always one of the challenges with these races. But these drivers have done a great job all season. I can't even remember, the incidents that we've had. There have been so few. So it's just great to see this, and it's just going to be another one of those nights where we've got some really, really fast cars in both classes, and those Vs are going to be stuck together, not literally, but they're going to be really tight formation as these cars battle for this race. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, fingers crossed we don't have some Formula cars stuck together. That would not be ideal. However, the iRacing glue always seems to work magic when it comes to stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, we mentioned some of the great sponsors we have from the Ray Esports Racing League a few moments ago, and I think it's time that we mention another one as we see Series Admin Stevie Ray running on the oval. In the Formula Fords, we have had a great sponsor ever since the start of Season 11 back in December of last year, that being Sim Motion. Sim Motion is not only the sponsor of the official Formula 1600 series here on iRacing, but is a proud partner of the Formula 1600s, or the Formula Fords, whatever you want to call them, here on the Ray Esports Racing League. And when it comes to the Formula Vs, we have another great sponsor in the form of TrailBreak.com. In the world of racing, telemetry is important in understanding your car and your driving, and it's why many people in the market take their butts on over to TrailBreak.com. TrailBreak has been in the racing data world since 2000. Considering that's 4 years older than myself, I can vouch that's more than enough time for them time to build a fantastic catalog of products. Whether you're in the world of karting, autocross, road racing, hill climbs, or track days, there's something there to help you go faster. To shop or just explore all they have to offer, head on over to trailbreak.com. Trailbreak.com is a sponsor of the Formula V's and a proud partner of the Ray Esports Racing League. And speaking of this Formula race, it's going to be intense, it's going to be hectic, and we've got a great 25-minute race in store for you this evening. I think we'll take a look at the starting grid for this race. We didn't touch too much on the qualifying, and in the Formula 4s, it was Jake King setting the fastest time at a 1 minute 34.328. That is a barn burner of a lap time for the driver of the number 39 car, Zach Rivard. A Formula 4 driver in real life will join him on the front row. Then we have Christian Kabanka in third, Stevie Ray in fourth, and Scott Russell is going to round out the field in the Formula 4s.
Yeah, in Formula V, Michelle Lynn takes pole with a 148.871. Miles Crabb is in second, so outside of front row. Josh Justice third, Jamison Huffman in fourth, Andrew Love in fifth, Jim Brewster in sixth, Seth Spolman in seventh, Trip Isley in eighth, Corey Heffron in ninth, Charlie Vaccaro in 10th in Formula V, Andrew Rosencroft in 11th, Brian Stasinski in 12th, Wayne Buttermore in 13th, and Joaquin Effinger brings up the rear 14th, and the final car in the Formula V grid.
Alrighty, so we've got a pretty packed field of race cars. You can see them in formation right entering turn number 7 on that back straightaway. A shortened pace lap, so we don't have a whole lot of time until we get that start in a few moments. I say that. I was going to say that it looked like we have an empty space there on the starting grid. I think that may be Scott Russell who didn't take the starting grid. I'm trying to see. And it looks like we only have 4 Formula 4s, but still 4 Formula 4s is going to be enough to put on a pretty hectic show. We've got 14 corners around this racetrack and a whole lot of opportunities to try and put on an overtake if you're in one of those Formula 4s or if you're in the Formula Vs. That pace difference as well is going to be huge. We saw in that qualifying session a pretty big gap between the pole sitter in the Formula 4s and the pole sitter in the Formula Vs. So with a pretty big pace disparity between the two categories, we may see multiple rounds of lap traffic. Regardless of what track these cars are running on, the lap traffic is usually a huge factor deciding who's going to walk away with the checkered flag. And here with the runoffs, with the stakes pretty high and 25 minutes in front of their face, these drivers may get a little bit aggressive and break their elbows out to try and take the checkered flag here at the 2024 Spring Tour runoff. So we're seeing the field go down into that quick infield shoot section before they go back onto the oval and grab that green flag. Jake King, as he did in pretty much every single race he did here with the Ray Esports Racing League this past season 12, he is going to be leading them to green. However, he's got the likes of Zach Rivard and Christian Kabanka to battle him hard and keep him on his toes from start to finish. So we're waiting for the field to grab that green flag. It feels like a forever jaunt. That pace car went down pit lane a long time ago, but now they're finally grabbing the green flag and the drivers are on their way. While it will be a slipstream fest in the Formula Vs, the Formula 4s, it's just a matter of who's going to have the big cojones to get on the brakes as late as they possibly can. We've already got 3 wide action, Rivard on the outside, and we've got, it's going to be tough stuff there. Kabanka in the middle and Jake King on the inside. King is going to be leading them heading through the 1 and 2 chicane at the beginning of this race. And right now in the Formula Vs, you can see Justice battling hard. A whole lot of drivers trying to shuffle and jockey for every single position they can. And you can see Michelle Lynn now trying to cling on for dear life to remain in P4. That was a pretty rough start for her. We'll see if she can try and make her way up the running order. And Rise, I say that Josh Justice, who was running in second, has now dropped down to 5th. So it shows you the topsy-turvy nature in these Formula V races. You can see like 5 different leaders in the span of just one single straightaway. But so far, the drivers making it through the first half of lap number 1 clean, which is something we couldn't say about the Spec Racer Fords earlier.
Yeah, it was a really good start by everybody. You were talking about the start for the Formula Fords, and I was watching the Formula V field fan out like a peacock's tail. It was 5 wide at one point down the front straight. And so I think that's gonna bode well for a really, really good race. And yeah, we don't have a big field in Formula Ford, but when you've got the likes of Jake King, Christian Kabanka, Zach Rivard, and Stevie Ray as your 4 cars, that's gonna make for some really, really good racing.
As much as Miles Crabbe is actually running P4 in the Formula Vs, as much as he may have been the standout star and the champion from the Formula Fords, it was really the Jake King show in all the races that he showed up to. So he is leading them. Starting lap number 2, we've got Kabanka in P2 and Rivard in P3, but that may change here in just a few moments time, as it looks like it's going to be tight between Kabanka and King, with Kabanka actually running a little bit wide. Zach Rivard may try and pick up the pieces here very, very soon. Rivard, as I said, he's a Formula Ford driver in real life. Kabanka, meanwhile, he is a standout star in the Formula Ford Weekend Warrior Series and actually won the final points-paying race of the season this past Sunday at Virginia International Raceway, so he is no stranger to winning in these cars. Meanwhile, in the Formula Vs, it is a hornet's nest. It's a pack of bees heading through turn number 1 and 2, 3 wide nearly coming out of turn 2. These drivers are not giving a hoot about their race cars. They're shuffling for every single position that they possibly can. We have battling all throughout that Formula V fight. I saw Straczynski and Buttermore swap positions. We may try and get that sorted for you in just a couple of moments. That small little graphical issue will go away, and oh my god, speaking of going away, I think that's a spin for Brian Straczynski, who just went round heading into the turn 5 and 6 chicane. I think that may have been contact between himself and Wayne Buttermore. We'll try and get a replay for you in the not too distant future to see exactly what happened there heading into the chicane, but that was not an ideal way for Straczynski's race to begin. He started towards the back in the Formula V fight and is now pulled back into the pits. So we have 2 retirements so far from this race: Scott Russell, who didn't even take the start, and Straczynski, who is now towed.
Yeah, we'll have to get a replay of that, but so far so good. It's just been the one incident, as Josh is getting us the replay now. So we see Straczynski battling on the inside there, and I'm trying to catch who that is. Oh yeah, just a little wheel-to-wheel contact there, loops the car around, but that was the only contact made. And not sure why Brian decided he wanted to just, that might have been the reason. Like all the spinning just overheated the tires, and he was struggling to try and get the car pointed back straight.
Yeah, the Formula Vs, as much as they may seem like slow race cars to most of the people that are watching the stream here on Apex Racing TV, they are sneakishly quick, despite the fact that they can only hit about 105 miles an hour going down the long straightaways around this track. They carry a whole lot of speed heading through the corners, as do these Formula Fords. And speaking of, Kabanka used that to tremendous effect during the first sector of this lap, as he's now trying to get a move done down the inside of Jake King heading into turn number 7. King goes all the way into the dirt trying to hold off, and he's still side by side with him heading through 8 and 9. Kabanka is going to hold it off for now, but Jake King is going to try and pick up the pieces and try and hold off any sort of challenge that Zach Rivard may put on. He has closed up that gap quite a lot. I mean, we're 4.5 minutes into this race, and so far the top 3 are still separated by less than 0.4 of a second. These Formula races are always absolutely insane. The Formula Fords, as much as they may not drift as well as the Formula Vs, they still put on some pretty intense racing from lights to flag, and we're seeing that put on fantastic display here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps when these guys are actually running this car in real life as well. And so I think that this, that gives them a lot more feel for how these cars drive, and these guys just battle hard and just close quarters racing for the entire length of the race, and it's just a blast to watch. And yeah, you talked about the Formula Vs, 105 down the straightaway, but most people don't drive 105 miles an hour. So anything, basically, when you get out on the racetrack, it feels fast. So, it's one of those that until you really get in there and feel it, then you just don't know. So, it's 105, but, still faster than me driving down the interstate most of the time.
People don't go 105 miles an hour on the roads. Charles, you clearly have not been to Philadelphia, my friend. We had a hard battle between King and Kabanka. I think they swapped places, and King is now in P1, Kabanka in P2, and they continue to swap spots heading through the opening sector to start off this lap. Huffman and Crabbe as well are battling for the lead in the Formula Vs. You can see them side by side heading into turn number 1 with them single filing out. We've got a 4-car peloton breaking away in the Formula Vs as all chaos goes on right behind. You can see the likes of Justice, Trip Isley, who are riding on board with, along with Brewster and Wozencroft, along with a few more drivers. They're locked steady in an absolute dogfight between P5, P6, P7, 8, 9, really all the way back to Charlie Vaccaro in P10. Basically 5 cars, nearly half the Formula V field, separated by barely any air. We just saw the Formula Vs negotiating the first sector of this lap, and the Formula 4s are about to start lap number 5, so that lap traffic is going to play a huge role in this race, and we've got a hard battle here. King trying to use Cabanca as a small little pick to hold off Zach Rivard. They're not going to be side by side heading into turn number 1. King on the outside, Cabanca on the inside. It's going to be very close there. Any sort of wheel-to-wheel contact will be donezo for all of them, so they're going to try and avoid touching any sort of wheels with a 10-foot pole, but they're still going to be battling hard. We just saw that put on full display heading through turn number 1 and 2. Jake King is now in the lead. Cabanca in P2, Rivard in P3, and even with that hard battling, Stevie Ray is still within 10 seconds of these drivers. So maybe if they start to battle way too hard and make contact, we could see series admin Stevie Ray take a Cinderella story victory. We'll just have to wait and see how things shake out in this race. Heading into turn number 7 now. Hard braking, one of the heaviest braking zones on this entire lap. These Formula Fords are just at the top of 4th gear heading into that turn, so they are holding the mail heading into that turn. So they are going from terminal velocity pretty much to a snail's pace compared to what they were on the start-finish straightaway. The same can go for these Vs as well. We're seeing a fantastic view of that front 4 breakaway with the chaos farther behind, and I wonder how much this is going to get disrupted once those Formula Fords start encroaching and start trying to deal with these Formula Vs in the not-too-distant future. For now, they're enjoying the fights. However, once those Fords come encroaching, it is going to be tough to try and stay in that close pack.
It is, and I think they're basically going to catch them next lap as the Formula Fords come around for their next lap. And it's just really a matter of where they catch them. If they catch them on the straightaways, it's pretty easy because they're just going to use that extra speed and blow right by them. If they catch them in some of this infield section here, it's going to make things a lot more difficult.
Ooh, and you can see the battling continue at the very north end of the field. He caught me in the middle of taking a sip of a Pepsi. Actually, no, Apex Racing TV is not sponsored or endorsed in any way by PepsiCo. And we're seeing the hard battling continue at the north end of the Formula Ford field. It's a similar situation to what we had in the spec race of Fords earlier on this evening. Very hard and very tense fighting between all of these drivers. They're not leaving any quarters on the racetrack or towards their competitors, and none are expected as well. Side by side heading into 7. Cabanca on the outside, King on the inside, and King is going to get that job done to take the lead overall and in those Formula Fords. Rivard at this point, I think he's biding his time. I think he has the pace to really contend with these two right in front of him who are trading blows like a pair of boxers in the octagon, but at this stage, they're taking it. Rivard is taking it easy. He is saying, like, hey, if these two knuckleheads are going to battle hard and maybe even crash into each other, I'm not even going to flex a muscle to try and battle hard with these two. And hey, it could work. Rivard, he's won races in the past, and we said earlier on in this broadcast to finish first you have to finish, and Rivard may try and put that on full display tonight.
Yeah, Rivard is a very, obviously because he drives it in real life, he's very, very smart. Strategic driver. Obviously got really good pace because he's basically matching these other guys. So the pace is there, but he's not willing to put anything out on a limb as we're back down side by side into turn 1. He's really, really patient driver, and he's just waiting on the right time. And the right time may be the last couple of laps, or it may be right now, but you could just tell he's not ready to risk everything to get by these guys. He's willing to just wait as they're catching up to the Formula V field. And so, maybe he finds an opportunity there. He can use one of these slower groups of cars as we see Brewster around. Oh, and there's Justice.
That was a big whack for Josh Justice. He started all season 12 up on his lid, and now we have Jim Brewster on his roof. That is not ideal as he's twitching in and out of the ground. That is not suitable for home viewing. We apologize for that as Brewster is nearly sent into the 7th circle of hell upside down on the outskirts of turn number 7. I think we'll have to take a look at a replay to see the aerial acrobatics from Josh Justice and the unfortunate incident involving Brewster ending up on his lid. I'm not sure how in the world that happened, but regardless, right as we were talking about the Formula Fords encroaching on that Formula V traffic, we saw a major incident heading through 7. 7. A Formula V crash could disrupt the chances of these drivers running at the north end of the Formula Ford field, as now they're catching up to him. Jake King is going to have to try and go around the outside of all these drivers. You can see they're pretty much all nose to tail going on to the start-finish straightaway to begin lap number 8. We may see some drivers start to feel a bit more aggressive. Michelle Lynn is leading it in the Formula Vs, and you can see the encroaching Formula Fords a little bit farther in the back, possibly going 3 wide down the start-finish straightaway. My God, they are Rivard in the middle trying to take the lead of this race. Jake King nearly hit him up the back, and Kabanka is fighting hard trying to take the lead of this race, and he does so. That was brilliant stuff from Christian Kabanka. We're seeing yet again another fantastic performance from Kabanka. He may not have won in the Spec Racer Fords, but he put on probably the best show of any of those drivers. And hey, he may not win in these Formula Fords, but he's certainly putting on a damn good show right now. And you've got the Formula Vs. They're going to be catching them at a really inopportune time too. They're not catching them on start-finish straightaway or this back straightaway. They're catching them heading into turn number 7, right as the Formula Vs had a big accident here just a lap ago. They're having to deal with it, and it's going to throw a wrench in the works of the Formula V fight and the Formula Fords as well. It's all about getting through this traffic as cleanly as you can. You don't want to disrupt the Formula Vs, but you don't want to ruin your race as well. Jake King pulled that off beautifully, as he's actually grown that gap and threaded the needle there between Wilson Croft and Lynn, heading back onto the banking now. So it's going to be Jake King leading it, and that's going to be Kabanka in P2. Actually, I say that the gap is still fairly small between those three, so that was just like lap traffic ninjas cutting their way through the field, cutting their way through the Formula Vs with katanas, and they pulled it off quite nicely, as they're still only separated by about 3/4 of a second starting lap 9.
Oh yeah, that gap will just tighten right back up as they get down. I see. Does look like King is trying to use the dragon there that is so famous at Indy. Weaving across the straightaway, trying to break the draft, but no such luck. Just too tightly together. And so yeah, they did a great job of navigating the traffic, and it was a great job by the Formula Vs of just basically putting their fight on pause, letting those cars work their way through, and then back to it again. I guess since we just saw Jim Brewster upside down, we could say hello to his sister Tam in Argentina, and just let her know that he is okay. He will be fit to race again on Sunday. Oh,
it was contact.
Yeah,
oh my God, that was a whole lot of bumping. Oh my God, that was a kickflip from Jim Brewster. That was I think that was a bit of that iRacing glue playing a role in Jim Brewster's car, getting yoinked up on its lid and then sent into the grass. Andrew Love is now leading it in the Formula Vs. I think here's another angle. It all started with Brewster and Justice making contact heading through the corner. I wonder, my God, that was... I wonder if that was just horribly misjudged from Justice, and there's Brewster ending up on his lid. That was probably about 1,000 G's he suffered with that violent jerking movement. I think I've seen damaged F-18 fighter planes jerk around less violently than Brewster's car on the outskirts of turn number 7 in that collision. I'm not sure what exactly happened there. I wonder if Justice just misjudged it horribly, or if Brewster was a little bit slow midway through turn number 7. Either way, that was unfortunate.
It was, and it just definitely did look like miscommunication, right? Maybe Brewster broke a little earlier than Josh was expecting. Maybe Josh was maybe missed his braking point a few feet, and just a little bit of contact made, but that was all that it took.
Ooh, and I think we may have had something happen to Zach Rivard heading his way into turn number 12, right behind the likes of Kabanka, who he made contact with heading into the corner. Thankfully, there's no front wings on these Formula Ford cars. Probably a little bit of a scuff to the nose cone of Zach Rivard's race car. He is very lucky to get away with that incident. Maybe he has some suspension damage, though, as that gap between himself and leader Jay King is now 2.6 seconds. Not ideal in the slightest. If you're Rivard, he still has a decent amount of time left to go in this race, 10 minutes to be exact, so he will be able to claw up that gap between now and the checkered flag. We'll just have to wait and see if he can get back involved in that fight. Speaking of a fight, we have one between Heffron and Trip Isley heading through turn number 4 right now. The two of them are battling for that last top 5 spot in the Formula V category, and they're only separated by about 0.3 of a second going on to this back straightaway. We still have 10 minutes left to go, so we may not see these drivers force the issue. Right as I say that, we have near 3 wide action going down the back straightaway into turn number number 7. We're riding on board with Michelle Lynn rounding her way into turn number 8 and 9 right about now. And you've got Huffman and Crab right in front with Love looking to pick up the pieces as well. We heard from Miles Crab at the end of that final Ray Esports Racing League race 1 week ago at the Glen. He said, hey, when it comes time for the runoffs, I may just run in the Formula Vs because I think they're super fun. He didn't feel confident about his chances though, but he's running in second with about 10 minutes left to go. It's actually 9 minutes left to go in this race. However, he is going to have to fight hard to hold on to that position and maybe even challenge Jameson Uppen for the win in this race. Michelle Lynn, very fast driver. She's driven in Formula Vs in real life in the past. She is always a driver to look out for when it comes to these Ray Esports Racing League events. She actually has her own event coming up in a few days' time that I'll talk about after this race. But Michelle Lynn running down in third. I say running down in third in that final podium position, and she may be able to pick up the pieces if we see Jameson Uppen and Miles Crab come to blows heading through turn number 1. And you can see 100 miles an hour in the draft heading down, and that was a pretty big lift from Michelle Lynn, so she's not really forcing the issue at this stage. Maybe what we were saying about Zach Rivard earlier on, how Rivard was taking it easy, not trying to force the issue. Maybe Michelle Lynn is just saying, hey, I've got 8 minutes left to go. I've got plenty of time and plenty of opportunities. If I want to take the lead for now, I'm just going to relax in P3, keep my race car clean, and focus on a last lap assault towards the end of this race.
I think that's exactly right. She's just kind of biding her time and just following the leaders. She's right there in a good spot, running in third, and obviously both P1 and 2 are right in front of her, side by side. So they'll go side by side into the corner. That'll slow both of them down. That'll give her a chance to claw right back up, as well as Andrew Love, who's in P4 here in this race as well. And so he's in a good position. And this little 4-car battle looks like it's going to continue till we get to the checkered flag.
This is going to be some pretty cool stuff to follow between now and the end of this. And touching back on the Formula Fords at the very north end of the field, it is still Jay King leading it over Christian Kabanka. And as we see some hard battling heading into turn number 12, it looked like Crab was maybe going to eye up a move heading into the third to last corner, but just wasn't close enough to get the job done. The front 4 in the Formula Vs are only separated by a second. Meanwhile, the front 2 in the Formula Fords are separated by 0.2 of a second. That's actually decreasing quite a lot going down this back straightaway. I think Kabanka is probably taking it a little bit easy right now. I'm curious if there is a teeny tiny bit of damage after that contact that he had with Zach Rivard not very long ago. And Rivard, I mean, he's still within striking distance if these drivers come to blows. However, that gap is looking to stay about the same. You can see last time by, Rivard was the fastest, but not by much. It was only actually no, it was 8 thousandths of a second. You could tell I was always great in math class at school. It was only 8 thousandths of a second quicker than Christian Kabanka on that last lap. So I think Rivard, while he is a very fast Formula Ford race car driver, I don't think I just don't think he has too much of a pace advantage to close up that gap. However, I will say Jay King and Kabanka have been helping out their chances by not going side by side into every single corner on every single lap. The same can't be said of the Formula Vs, as Crab and Huffman have actually broken away, and now they're going side by side down the back straightaway. They're going to be tight heading into turn number 6. We saw these two trade blows in the Spec Racer Fords earlier on this evening. We're seeing it again in the Formula Vs. Crab is going to be on the outside, Huffman on the inside, squirreling under braking, trying to get these cars wound up from about 100 miles an hour down, and you can see Huffman actually tapping the grass on corner exits. Miles, Crab, and Huffman are going to battle hard. We saw that in the Spec Racer Fords. Some very capable race car drivers to go from Spec Racer Fords to Formula Vs, pretty much two entirely different animals in the racing world, and still put on some pretty good shows with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right with King and Kabanka are just not fighting. They said, you know what, we've got to keep this gap for the next couple of minutes. So we're not going to fight each other going through the corners, because instantly Rivard will be right back with them. So they're doing the smart thing and not battling side by side, at least till we get to the white flag. Then it's a 2-car fight versus a 3-car fight, which is what these guys are looking for. But yeah, it's the Formula V field, Huffman and Crab still battling. That's keeping Lynn and Love right in the mix. So that's like that was coming down to the wire.
And you can see some more side-by-side action in the Formula Vs. This is for that final top 5 spot between Corey Heffron and Trip Isley, side-by-side going down that start-finish straightaway, now single filing out before they even think about getting on the brakes into turn number 1. You can see how much the front end of these race cars dive down when they go onto the brakes, and ran a little bit wide there, did Corey Heffron. He's now going to lose at that spot yet again, maybe on Trip Isley. I will say he had a pretty good exit considering he ran wide. However, Isley trying to sweep around the outside, heading into turn number 4. They may go side by side again, heading through the 5 and 6 chicane. Isley on the inside, he is going to get that move. Heffron backing out, understandably so, because going side by side, even in these Formula V race cars, which are basically small little flies, insects in the racing world, that is still not ideal to go side by side through that section. Speaking of going side by side, Jake King and Kabanka were very briefly side by side, and that could be the reason why Zach Rivard has closed up that gap. Another reason could be we've hit the Formula V traffic yet again. We'll have to see if King and Kabanka can negotiate it as well as they did on that first time. I think we'll take a look at a replay. There may have been some contact between these two. You can see Wayne Buttermore involved in that. Oh my God, he had a fantastic view of a near disaster between King and Kabanka heading into turn number 4. That could have ended in tears if those race cars were just a few feet closer. Thankfully for them, it didn't end in tears. However, they are still risking it going side by side.
They are, and it's just Zach Rivard just keeps getting closer and closer with gaps now under a second. So he's right back in the mix here, and the traffic, it's got a good catch there by Zach. A little oversteer there. So now Justice doing a nice job just getting out of the way and letting these guys continue to race. So yeah, it's going to be one of those that is like this one's coming down to the wire as well. Now that Rivard's in there, and they still got a little more traffic they got to navigate. As you can see them up in the front. So you got to hope you can get as many of these cleared on the straightaway as you can to finish off this race and have a nice clean battle amongst the people that you're racing with.
Ooh, and you can see the Isley and Heffron fight right up in front of these 3 race car drivers. Rivard has done beautifully to claw up that gap. Lap traffic, we said, was going to be a factor all throughout this race, and it's helping Rivard here. He's going to have to try and use any sort of opportunity he can. Certainly try not to have a repeat of the incident he had with Kabanka, who's leading them going onto this back straightaway on lap 15. Jay King aggressively pursuing that slipstream, going onto the road there on the left-hand side, down that back straightaway. They're going to be side by side. Is Rivard going to make it 3 wide? My God, he is. Okay, he backs out of it, understandably so. If those drivers went 3 wide into turn number 7 towards the end of this race, I was about to have a freaking heart attack. But Zach Rivard trying to be a little bit patient. However, he realizes that there's not a whole lot of time left to go if you're any of these drivers. Now is the time to make inroads and go for some aggressive maneuvers. Rivard is going to be right behind him, 3 wide and making contact with he and Jake King running their way around turn number 11. They're going to be side by side heading into 12. This is another heavy braking zone around this circuit. Rivard might be a little bit spooked considering the contact that he and Kabanka made earlier on in this race, but they're still nearly side by side heading through turn 13. I think they will be taking a white flag this time by, so it's 1 lap to go for our leader, Christian Kabanka. He came up oh so close in that Spec Race or Ford race earlier on this evening, and with the Formula Vs a little bit farther up in front of them, they're going 3 wide down the start-finish straightaway. Kabanka, he's going to have to send it, and he is sending and making it 4 wide there. That is incredible. Rivard, he's going to try and stick it around the outside. This is going to be close between all of these drivers. Rivard doesn't have a whole lot to lose. Kabanka doesn't have a whole lot to lose, and Jake King doesn't either. There's no points being given out. It's just going for all-out bragging rights, and Rivard is leading them coming through turn number 4 on this last lap. However, he's going to be the one punching the hole in the air. He will be a sitting duck for Kabanka and Jake King to possibly pounce. He ran a little bit wide there, ran over the curb. I'm curious if Rivard may have picked up a slowdown. No, he's still going at full speed, so Rivard is lucky to get away with that one. That is for darn sure. We've got King and Kabanka going side by side. They're kind of ruining their chances of fighting with Rivard. However, Rivard goes incredibly deep there, has a big slide on corner exit, and now he is chopped liver compared to Kabanka right behind. It looked like he was going to try and eye up a move. Meanwhile, on the Formula Visa tactic, Andrew Love is leading them heading through turn 8 and 9. At the end of this race, Crab made contact with Huffman. He's going to be out of it yet again as he goes side by side with Michelle Lynn heading through turn number 12. That's broken up in the Formula Vs. This is going to be a dogfight between Huffman and Love, coming to take the checkered flag in just a few moments' time. I'm not sure what happened in the Formula Vs. Rivard is still leading it. However, he runs a little bit wide coming out of turn number 13. He's running his way through turn 14 right now, and Zach Rivard, who we thought was out of this fight, we thought that he was done for after the contact he made with Christian Kabanka earlier. Zach Rivard is going to win the runoffs here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it was a photo finish between Christian Kabanka and Jake King. We're going to have a photo finish here in the Formula Vs. Love is leading them out of the final corner, but Huffman, who won in the Spec Racer Fords earlier, is going to be side by side with him coming to the line. Man, that was close between Love and Huffman, but it was Love taking the checkered flag just barely over Huffman when they came to the yard of bricks. And we also have another photo finish here between Isley and Heffron. Heffron is going to lose out in that yet again. Oh man, Charles, I am running out of breath. That was intense. We were expecting some pretty hard racing, and we certainly got. Charlie Vaccaro, I think, is running out of fuel. He is incredibly slow coming out of the final corner as we see Wayne Buttermore in P9 finish a little bit farther up the road. Stevie Ray in the midst of that Formula V traffic as well. Oh my goodness, that was all. Look, you can see that gap, at least according to our graphics, 0.029 of a second between Andrew Love and Jamison Huffman. Huffman so close. He got the sweep last year. Sadly, it is not going to happen this year, but he can't say he didn't try. He gave it everything towards the end of that race.
He absolutely did. Look, just tried the over-under coming into that corner. Andrew Love did a great job just carrying the speed through there. Was able to hang on to the lead. And as they coming out of the final corner, heading down to the start-finish line, Andrew Love just sets the car up on the inside and makes him go the long way around. And just has enough speed, not enough of a overspeed by Huffman. And Andrew Love comes from 4th to 1st, I think, on the last lap to win the Formula Vs with Michelle Lynn in 2nd, Miles Crabb in 3rd. There was also a very close battle between them as well.
And I think we have some drivers. This was the view of the Formula Vs. This was a start of that final lap, and it was a whole lot of chaos there. Miles Crabb led them on that white flag lap. However, when it came time to taking that checkered flag, he fell a little bit farther back. You can see the Fords just blowing their metaphorical doors off going down that start-finish straightaway into turn number 1. The speed difference as well. We talked about the pace differential, but the speed differential is huge in these race cars. Okay, this is a little bit of a personal story of mine, but I was running an AI race. I was in the Formula Vs, and I set up a bunch of AIs to blow my doors off running around Michigan International Speedway, the 2-mile D-shaped oval. The Indy cars were buzzing by, going about 220, while the Vs were doing about 103. And this is just about, it's kind of like a mini version of that. Rivard played that beautifully. He used those lapped Formula V cars to perfect effect, and Rivard pulls off a fantastic move to take the lead of this race. We counted him out too early. That's what we did. We thought Rivard with a 2.3, I think it was at most a 3-second gap after that incident between himself and Kabanka. We counted him out a little bit too early, but hey, he put on a show to end up taking the checkered flag, the top of the Formula 4 drivers. And I think before we wrap things up here from this Formula race, we'll have a chat with some of the drivers that were in it. And, yeah, Charles, who do you like to have a chat with first?
Let's talk to our race winner and Formula Ford winner, Zach Rivard. Zach, congratulations on the win. It looked there for a moment like you were going to end up in 3rd. You kind of got shuffled back by a couple of seconds. But were very patient and managed to work your way up front. Made a great move around some of the other traffic to get that win. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I accidentally hit Christian under the brakes one time, and that's what kind of got me disconnected. And then I was just trying to run fast laps. But I was only maybe a 10th quicker a lap, so I wasn't going to be able to catch him. But in traffic, I just I got a break, and that got me back in the draft. So last couple laps were crazy. I was in a Discord with some of my friends, and they were telling me I was chopped liver on the last lap, and that I wasn't going to have enough time to catch back up. But luckily, traffic helped me out, and And then just I made the right moves on the last lap or two. I wanted to be second, coming to the white flag, and I was nervous on the last lap that they were going to draft back by, but luckily they battled with each other just enough that I held on.
Yeah, we talked about that, about the multi-class aspect of this. Sometimes it helps you and sometimes it hurts you, but obviously gave you a big assist tonight, was able to work your way through. And it really only is, we talk about it, and it's really only, you may catch a car, the cars in front of you may catch a car going into a corner, and they have to kind of hold themselves up, and then you get the free run through the corner and get the good exit. And, sometimes that's just enough to get you back up in there for the fight.
Yeah. And, it's a little easier to be brave on the simulator than in real life. So there was a couple, going through the little kink on the back straight or the Holman straight, whatever it is. And there were a couple there where, we went through too wide with some V's, and, luckily they gave us the space, and it all worked out.
There you go. Well, Zach, congratulations on the win. Are you going to be running the Spec Miata race coming up?
I don't believe so. I was trying to run the Spec Racers earlier, but the 6.5 gig update from iRacing caught me out, and I missed it by 2 minutes. Oh, that's too bad.
All right, well, Zach, congratulations, and we'll see you next time around whenever you're back to race with us.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that was Zach Rivard, who ends up taking the checkered flag here from the 2024 Spring Tour Runoffs. And we have some more drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. We'll have a quick little chat with Michelle Lynn, who was in that Formula V race, involved in that absolute dogfight in the Formula V category. Michelle, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. That looked pretty intense from our perspective as the broadcasters. How was it behind the wheel involved in that awesome Formula V fight?
Oh my God, this was such a fun race tonight. And you caught me. I was in the middle of talking to Justin and I got pulled in and I'm like, wait, what? First of all, congratulations to Andrew on the win. Andrew, Justin, myself, and Miles, we were all just battling the whole time. But like early on in the race, I said to them, I'm like, let's just, take it easy. Let's get a gap on the cars behind us and then we'll fight. And it just worked out perfectly. I'm more than happy with the third place. It's so good running with guys that you can run lap after lap, really pushing and not have people run into you. It was just really clean, good racing tonight.
I think I said in my open, hard yet respectful racing is always a fixture here in the Ray Esports Racing League, and even through the thick and thin of all the chaos, and especially the Formula Fords gang involved in y'all's Formula V fight, it was still a pretty good show. And now, this is a pretty interesting track, just in terms of the curbs surrounding it. There's some that are flat as a pancake, and other ones that'll really mess up your day, and believe me, I hit enough curbs doing some practice laps in the Vs earlier, knowing that it's not very fun when you hit those giant curbs and those tiny little Formula V cars. So was it really important trying to strike a balance between what curbs to hit and which ones not to?
Yeah, it's kind of the thing that's really fun about the Indy Road Course is it's like a dance. You're always sliding somewhere, and you just have to kind of time your slide so that you slide to the right place. As usual, I spent a bunch of time on setup, and no, I'm not going to share my setup either, but I definitely dialed out a little bit of oversteer. Normally I have a ton of oversteer in my car, but I dialed out a little bit because there's a couple corners where you really have to trail brake and they're kind of off camber and it's just like spin city otherwise. So I did have to dial the car back a little bit just to go faster.
Well, it's always the setup that makes it such a big factor when it comes to these races with a really close field throughout. Now, I'd usually ask at this point, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out? But you have a very special event that's going to be broadcasted here on Apex Racing TV this upcoming Saturday. So would you like to tell the viewers about that?
Yeah, I would love to. So this Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we're having a Formula V charity race at the Nordschleife. 14.9 miles? I'm probably wrong, but it's a very long track. And in the Formula V, it is just so fun. You're basically pedaled the whole time. But the important thing is we are racing to raise money for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. More information on this can be found in our Discords, in the Ray Esports, and Ray Esports on Facebook, or just somehow reach out to me. Smoke signal works, whatever. But we are still accepting entries. I know that Megan is going to be joining us, so I'm really excited about that. And I had hopped into a practice session with her at the Nordschleife and was feeling kind of good about myself. Like I was getting down to like a 9:03, and she just like rips a 9-minute flat. And it's like, oh, it's my first lap. So expect big things from Megan on Saturday for sure. But as you guys are broadcasting it, it also gives a chance for viewers to donate to the charity, which would be amazing. And I think that's about it. Sorry, my head gets real spinning after a race.
Oh, it's quite all right. Trust me, my head's usually spinning when I'm on the air, so it's quite all right, Michelle. So thank you for talking about that race. I just put in the request to our boss to be a part of that broadcast this upcoming Saturday. And if I'm not, I'll probably be on track because Formula V's at the Nordschleife sounds really, really exciting. The viewers here on Apex Racing TV better be tuned into that because the last...
Can I... Sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I just need to. I need to do one more thing because I forgot the last time I was on with you guys, and I got some. I don't want to say the word crap for it. I guess. I wanted to give a shout out to my friends Will, Chris, and Sammy. They're kind of like my virtual team for the Formula V. So, hey guys, I know you're watching. Sorry, I just didn't want to forget.
It's quite all right, don't worry. You always have to get the other shout-outs in. So, Michelle, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth. Excited to be a part, hopefully be a part of the Saturday charity race you have going on. I was a part of the last charity broadcast here on Apex Racing TV. That was also for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and that was a NASCAR race at Michigan, so far different than the race we'll have this upcoming Saturday, but fingers crossed. I'm a part of that, and the viewers tune into that broadcast because I think that's going to be a hectic race. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on the podium.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.
And that was Michelle Lynn, who ends up the Formula V race in P number 3. I feel like I need to apologize to our producer, Josh. I think we'll roll the 2-minute 30 ad break while we switch over to the Miatas if we possibly can. We've got 2 of the 3 races out of the way this evening. They're both quite intense, and the Spec Miatas I think are going to be exciting as well, with their own little unique flair, and also some reworked tire physics as well. So coming up are the Spec Miatas, and hopefully you can stay tuned here on Apex Racing TV to catch that a very exciting race after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
And so it has come down to this, everyone, the final race for the Spec Miatas tonight. These cars have put on some pretty good shows over the past season, regardless of how many engines may have been grenaded thus far, but with possibly the most challenging cars now on track tonight. I want to ask you this here real quick, Charles. Do you expect this race to be a bit more attrition-filled than we've seen so far this evening?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm hoping that we don't have any more money shifts tonight, as we see Josh Justice just missed the breaking point and said, you know what, I'm taking the escape road. I've got this whole oval corner that I can deal with. And so, no, I don't think so. I think these races have been really, really good all season. I think from everybody we've talked to, everybody's really enjoyed driving these cars. So we'll see what the updates for iRacing have done, if there's been any changes to these. Obviously, we know the damage model is a little different now, so we'll see if that has any effect. But yeah, let's hope that the money shifts are gone for tonight for the season, and we can just have a good clean race and everybody finishes.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily rule out the money shifts returning. There are a decent amount of heavy braking opportunities for these drivers to maybe have one of those money shifts. We saw a pretty good one last time out at Watkins Glen. Fingers crossed for the driver's sakes we don't have any one of those. We may have to put any sort of money shifts we've had from the season and have those end up on Apex Racing month of May. Actually, no, it'd be month of June highlight reel, and gives you another reason to hit that subscribe button here. Let me try that one again. Hit the subscribe button here on Apex Racing TV, so you never miss one of those monthly highlight reels that our old mate Sam Fitzpatrick puts together of all the wacky stuff. And I'll tell you what, Charles, we always end up on the strange moments when it comes to those month highlight reels. I think this past month, it all started off with a broadcast that you unfortunately weren't a part of, but me and Aaron Smith, another one of the commentators here on Apex Racing TV, were on a very strange one, in which case a Formula 4 car was caught like between ascending to heaven and descending to the depths of hell, and ended up barrel rolling because they clipped a 3D curb in a very weird way. That was bizarre, and if anyone wants to tune into that clip, you can check out that highlight reel on Apex Racing TV after this broadcast is done. And I'll tell you what, the broadcast I think so far has been quite hectic. We've had to touch on quite a lot, especially during the other open before the Formula race that we just had. So I had some history tidbits ran out for every single part of the broadcast, and I think I'll lay out an interesting one. I mentioned in my open that we're racing nearly 115 years to the day of the first ever event of any kind here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and here's a story about that. So tomorrow, June 5th, 2024, unless you're watching this in the future, in which case it's whatever day it may be tomorrow. Tomorrow on June 5th, 2024 is going to be the 115-year anniversary of the first race of any kind at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was an endurance race, but one featuring hot air balloons to see who could keep their balloon up in the air for the longest amount of time and traverse the longest distance. The winner of the race was a gentleman by the name of John Barry, who ended up keeping his hot air balloon up in the air for a solid 35 hours straight and traversed, I think, 378 miles all the way to Fort Payne, Alabama. So that may have bored some people to death watching this stream here on Apex Racing TV. So Charles, can you bring a bit more entertainment to this and talk about the qualifying session?
Well, I've actually been to Fort Payne, Alabama, believe it or not. So obviously not for the balloon ride, but no, it's obviously it's an iconic track, and it's the more I think about it, it's like this is really only about an 11-hour drive straight up the interstate from my house to the speedway, and I'm just gonna have to make that trip one of these days. So yeah, I guess the only tidbit I have is we talked about the road course. It's not the original road course they did for Formula One way back in the day. This actually is a kind of a redesigned road course, and actually Indy legend Tony Kanaan had quite a bit of a hand in helping to design this current layout. So if you don't like it, blame Tony.
Amen. Blame TK. Gotta start a new hashtag. Hashtag blame TK. Tony Kanaan is a legend in the other world of IndyCar, and helped that course design on the same year that he ended up winning the Indianapolis 500. So maybe there's something with helping the track design at Indy and going on to win your first ever Indy 500 after a very long wait. I know that was a fan favorite win when he crossed the yard of bricks back in 2013 under yellow, I believe, after a crash for reigning Indy 500 champion that year. Dario Franchitti crossed the yard of bricks under yellow to take his first ever win at the Indianapolis 500. So we're following Charles Boley here. He's currently 4th in this qualifying session. We'll see if he can maybe try to improve his qualifying time. He's not very long off of P3 runner Josh Justice. We'll see if he can close up that gap. It's only about 2/10 separating himself and Justice coming to the line right now, and we'll see if it is an improvement. We have had the checkered flag out in this qualifying session for about a minute, and to the line, Boley does jump up to 3rd. Nicely played at a 144.956. And Miles Crabb, our champion from this season in the Spec Miatas, is currently our provisional pole sitter at a 144.233. So regardless of what car it is, Miles Crabb always seems to be a very fast race car driver in them.
Yes, yeah, it really is. And he's had a couple of near misses tonight. He just for whatever reason, had the mistake in the first race and was in a really good battle, I think, with some contact late in the second race. Couldn't quite get up to the front, so maybe this is the third time's the charm for him, and he'll take this victory and finish off the night on a good note, and it'll be it'll be great. So we'll sit back and relax and let these guys do some hard racing, and we'll talk about it. So I'm looking forward to it as always, because these cars are fun to watch. They're not quite the same as the current global MX-5, so a little bit slower, a little bit older, and but still very, very good racing.
These cars always put on a pretty good show, and we'll see that put on full display here in the next 25 minutes or so. Miles Crabb is going to be leading them to green. A 144.233 is a pretty good lap time, and was 0.7 of a second quicker than Andrew Wozencroft, who's going to join him on the front row. Charles Boley jumping up to P3 in the dying stages of that qualifying session. He'll be starting this race in P3 alongside Josh Justice in 4th, and Seth Spolman in P5. Michael Snow in P number 6, Charlie Vaccaro in 7th. Wayne Buttermore in number 8, P number 8. Andrew Jameson in 9th. Josh Soto in 10th. Not saying a qualifying time, so he may be a driver we need to look out for. He put on a pretty fantastic show last week at Watkins Glen. We'll see if he has a repeat of that here tonight. And Sean Hayes in P number 11 in the number 94 car is going to round out the starting grid from the final Spec Miata race of the season and the final race from the 2024 Ray Esports Spring Tour Runoffs. It's been a pretty exciting night of racing action. Hard pumping stuff from start to finish. Hard but respectful racing, as I said in that interview with Michelle Lynn about 10 minutes ago. And I think we're going to get a pretty good one here this evening. Miles Crabb, if he just keeps his nose clean, he's probably going to be the main force to be reckoned with. He's a winner in these cars. He is the champion from Season 12 of the Ray Esports Racing League, and with a 7/10 gap between himself and Andrew Wozencroft for the pole position. If he just keeps it clean and doesn't get involved in any sort of chaos heading into turn number 1, he is going to be the force to be reckoned with. So you can see that Porsche pace car going down pit lane, and now it feels like forever until we're going to grab the green in just a few moments time. A little bit of a shuffled up grid, it must be said. I think Wozencroft laying back a little bit, and you can see some drivers looking like they're already shuffling for position a little bit farther in the back. There's an interesting strategy from Wozy, maybe trying to time the start to perfection to have a fantastic run heading into turn number 1. We'll just have to wait and see if that works out for him. The green flag is out now, and the drivers are on their way. Once again, it's another excruciatingly long run heading into turn number 1. If you're a driver that's going to be falling prey to the lack of slipstream like Miles Crabb, it's going to feel like forever. Now he's locked steady in a 3-wide fight between himself and Josh Justice and another driver on the outside. You can see Wozy leading it into turn number 1, Justice swooping around the outside to go into P number 2, and some rally action as well with both of the drivers running at the north end of the field. But exiting, oh my god, that's a big slide coming out of turn number 1. I see multiple drivers involved in that. I think that is Seth Spolman that we see. Michael Michael Snow and Sean Hayes may have been the cars involved in that Schmalzel coming out of turn number 1 and 2. But right now, the north end of the field, surprisingly so, it is not Miles Crab, it is Andrew Wozencroft in the number 80 car leading them heading into turn number 7. You got Josh Justice right behind in P at number 2, and Miles Crab is still within striking distance. He has one more car between himself and the front 2 runners, that being Charles Boley, but Miles Crab is definitely not out of it. This is going to be another game of leapfrog here in the Spec Miatas.
Yeah, I think so. We see another car that's like maybe that's the 25 car of Andre Jameson, drive trainer, going through the grass. So I was going to say something that probably would have got me in trouble, so I'll not do that. So we'll go back up to the front.
Leave it.
Yeah, so go back up to Wozencroft and Justice, leading this. Obviously, really, really good start to the race. Was able to jump out to the front, and so we'll continue watching them. And yeah, the leapfrogs will probably start because these cars actually make a pretty big hole in the air. And so it's not necessarily a big draft, but you do get some good overspeed when you're trailing.
Do get some assistance, and Justice is going to try and use that to perfect effect heading into turn number 1 at the start of lap 2, but it looks like it's going to be Miles Crab, the one possibly eyeing up a move on Boley to move his way into P number 3. They're going to be side by side heading their way into turn number 1, very close to contact midway through the corner. Boley has that inside line heading through turn number 2, but they're still going to be side by side on exit through 3 and careening their way into turn number 4. Crab, he is having to fight it. We thought it was going to be fairly cut and dry for him, but after a disaster started where he got chewed up and spat out by the cars around him, he is now trying to fight quite hard. I think we're going to take a look at a replay to see that lap 1 turn 2 Schmalzel. We're following Seth Spolman in the number 42 car negotiating his way through that first chicane. I think it was Michael Snow that ran wide heading through turn 2, hit the grass, and sadly for him he went to the path of Spolman, and that was that Hayes that was collected in that. I believe he was the third car involved in that hit. We're running on board with Michael Snow heading his way through that turn 1 and 2 chicane.
A little bit of contact.
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit of contact there.
The contact.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of looked like Snow and Spolman kind of got into each other, pushed Snow a little wide. Obviously, then trying to return back onto the track. Maybe more contact made, caused a spin, and then obviously nowhere for the cars behind to go in that tight little section of track, and so more cars get collected. And as we see, maybe a little technical difficulty here, we're kind of stuck in the replay mode.
The damage. Yeah, the damage on Michael Snow's car. He's stopped in the pits. At this point, well, I mean, the iRacing mechanics say you're usually drinking gallons of Red Bull by the second to fix these cars as quickly as they can. And now you can see Michael Snow trundling his way down pit lane. Thankfully for his sakes, he is getting out of the way of the leaders that are blowing his metaphorical doors off as he's on pit exit, as they're heading their way into turn number 1. Crab on the inside, Wozencroft on the outside. Wozencroft went incredibly deep, and he's dropping back like a rock. A small little lockup, I think, caused him to go down into P number 4. Actually down to P5 is Josh Soto, who we haven't talked about so far in this race. Josh Soto, who didn't set a qualifying time and started this race in, I believe, 10th, is now made his way up to 4th. This is a fantastic race so far from the driver of the 07 car, and it's still not over yet. We're not even 5 minutes into this 25-minute race, and now Soto looking to eye up a move on Boley to move his way into P number 3. Up 6 spots so far. Is he gonna make it 7? Heading into turn number 7. It's close between the two of them. Battle last late breaker. Soto on the inside, clips that curb dramatically, and he's hopping like he has a pogo stick under his race car, but Josh Soto moves his way up into P number 3. Nicely played from the driver of the 07 car. Started this race in 10th. He's now up 7 spots from where he started this race. Got a move done into turn number 7. Lots of 7s there, so maybe some weird symbolism going on with Josh Soto. Maybe have to see how things shake out for him.
Yeah, maybe so. And it was, that was close. Late braking there by the 63 car of Boley. Yeah, Josh is obviously, we've seen him time week in, week out. He just gets in there and starts in the back and just kind of works his way up. Sometimes it works out. He's able to get up near the front and get a good result. Sometimes he gets kind of caught in one of those instances like we had on lap 1. But so far, very clean, and he's eyeing Josh Justice, going to make that move to the inside, going down the front straight into turn 1. looks like that's going to be a pretty easy overtake. So now it's going to be up to Justice to see if he can hang with him and maybe return that favor coming up on the next lap.
And we haven't mentioned the fact that Miles Crab has gone back into the lead of the race, and he's actually pulled away from the likes of Soto and Justice with a 1 second gap, separating himself and the cars a little bit farther behind. But again, we still have a long way left to go. We're only 6 minutes in, so we have 19 minutes left in this race and 19 minutes left from the 2024 Spring Tour Runoffs. We've got a fight between Seth Spallman and Wayne Buttermore. These were the two cars that were involved in that turn 2 schmozzle. They went off heading through this section. I think it may have been Spallman that was the one that T-boned Buttermore in that incident. They get through turn 2 clean this time around. I'm trying to look to see where exactly, as we see Wayne Buttermore run a little bit wide, he may be sitting duck going down this back straightaway. Trying to figure out where the other car involved in that fight actually ended up. Actually, yeah, Michael Snow in P10, 1 lap down. He was a car that we saw tow back to the pits. Not ideal for him at all, as Wayne Buttermore and Spallman going side by side. Yeah, you can see Snow a little bit farther up the road, and Buttermore sticking it around the outside. He actually backs out of it as Spallman with a big curb whack on the inside, going up on 2 wheels. Charles, I'm not sure how much you've driven these cars, but whenever you get these things up on 2 wheels, you can just flutter the gas pedal. It's like flying a kite.
Yeah, no, haven't spent a lot of time in these cars, but enough curb whacks here at Indy in other cars that's not something you want to do every lap. It's just unnerving because the car is bouncing and you're getting all that feedback in your steering wheel. And then B is you never know when the random number generator of iRacing damage is going to say, hey, you just broke something. So that's not something you want to continue doing lap in and lap out. And so have to keep an eye on that. But obviously, battling for a position, you're going to try and take your line and be aggressive with it. And that's exactly what he did. Got through there on that lap. And so now it'll be Buttermore's turn to just kind of ride behind and see if he can return that favor on Spallman.
That was a very good point you mentioned there, Charles, about random number generation. iRacing, it is a premier racing simulator, but you still have a few moments here and there where things may get a little bit screwed up. So hopefully no drivers in this race become a victim of that. It'll prevent a battle between Crab and Soto, but every now and then RN Jesus frowns upon an iRacer, an innocent iRacer, minding their own business, and says, no. They'll just say, no, you get suspension damage. And that's right. They just say, no, you get suspension damage, and you're done. So that's it. I've been the victim of that in the past. I have had that happen in road course races, sports car races, formula races, dirt road course races, dirt oval races, and oval races. So I've been the victim of that. Pretty much every single iRacer has been the victim of a small little bit of contact that turns your car into an absolute hoopty-rod. So hopefully none of the drivers here from the Ray Esports Racing League and the Spec Miata race are going to be a victim of that as well. Soto, he may be closing up this gap and maybe going for a move into turn number 1 at the start of lap number 5. You can see that gap between those two, barely anything as they go on to the start-finish straightaway. Crab, he's going to be a sitting duck. He knows what it's like. He remembers a feeling he had at the very beginning of this race. Is he going to have a repeat, or is Soto actually going to be a little bit patient? I think if these two just work hard, they're going to extend that gap over themselves and Boley and Justice, who are battling hard, along with Wozencroft involved. They make contact heading through turn at number 1. They're nearly making contact as Wozencroft drifting, going through the grass. He goes for a half spin. He is going to be losing touch to the back of Boley and Justice and may fall into the crutches of Vaccaro and Spallman. Actually, no, that's Vaccaro and the lapped car of Snow, my apologies. But either way, not ideal for Andrew Wozencroft. Led at the beginning of this race, however, things have not gone his way ever since then. We'll see if he can hold on to that final top spots between now and the end of this. Justice has actually lost touch with Boley. There's a little bit of contact between those two. I don't think it was anything severe as they went through the 1 and 2 chicane. But, as I say that, Boley goes off the track, has a big slide, and now he is going to be a sitting duck with Justice right behind. So these two battling, that gap between themselves and the pack of Soto and Crab is going to continue to grow, which is good news for the drivers running in P1 and P2. But for these two drivers, it's not ideal.
It's not, and it's going to give Wozencroft a chance to make up some of that time. And it's just basically these cars, I don't think they're on the current tire model. I still think that the damage model's been up there. I'm not sure about the tire model. But either way, they got on the curbs, and if you just get in the grass and the car just wants to spin, Wozencroft caught his, Boley caught his as well, but you got to be very careful. You can take those little cuts into the curbs, but once you get over that curb into the grass, then you're just at that point trying to catch the car and get it back under control. So now it's Boley and Justice are going to be fighting, and the more they fight, as we talk about in every race that we do, the more they fight, they lose the cars in front, and the cars in back get a little closer. So we'll see if they manage to fight some more. Looks like Justice is maybe losing a little bit of time to Boley there, so I'm not really sure what's going on. Maybe Justice has got an off track or a slowdown somewhere. He's lost about a second because that battle was pretty tight there for a while, and it's kind of opened up a bit.
And we're still seeing the tight battle up at the north end of the field. This time, Soto looking to get the move done down the inside, heading into turn number 7. It's going to be close between the two of them, but Josh Soto taking the lead of this race with a fairly textbook move, heading into turn number 7. Nicely played. And meanwhile, farther behind, Boley has gone off yet again, and that gap between himself and Justice has once again diminished. Boley, 2 laps in a row, has gone off at the exact same corner, and I can't really say that's a hard mistake to make. It's a very easy mistake to make heading into the braking zones at this track. Going through the gears, it is a razor thin margin of actually getting into the gear that you want or ending up in neutral. The engine braking is so important when it comes to these drivers trying to get the maximum amount of speed out of their race car. So if you just end up in neutral, even for the matter of like a half a second, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. It goes back to the point I mentioned a few moments ago of random number generation Jesus in the world of iRacing, which I will try not to mention again, just because I'm not sure if I can do the voice associated with that character ever again. I may have blown out my vocal cords like I did at the end of the Homestead race about a month ago. We'll gloss over that as we have a fight still heating up between Crab and Soto. I think Crab at this point, they're coming up to the halfway mark of this race, so maybe Miles Crab being like, hey, look, I've been in this situation before in these cars. Soto, a very worthy adversary. Maybe we'll see Crab do what we thought Brevard was doing earlier, and what we thought, I think it was Crab earlier on. Actually, no, it may have been Jameson Hoffman, I think, that just decided to take it easy in the spec racer forwards. Actually, no, right as I say that, Soto with a big curb whack heading through the 5 and 6 chicane, and now Crab is going to look to try and capitalize on that small little mistake that his adversary made side by side heading into the braking zone of turn number 7. Crab on the outside. Is he going to stick? And no, he does not. So I think maybe he is taking it a little bit easy and just decided to stick it around the outside to try and take advantage of a small little mistake from his competitor.
I think that's exactly what he's doing. He's just kind of biding his time. I think he may be feeling a little snake bit, because every time he's trying to make a move to take the lead, or at least in the later stages of the race, it's cost him a potential win. So he said, you know what? I'm just going to kind of ride around here. We'll wait till the last couple of laps before we start racing hard. And I will say this, and that's something we haven't talked about as far as I can remember this season. This is the first season they've gone to what we call the Spec Miata, as opposed to the MX-5 Cup cars, which is an older iteration of the Mazda Miata MX-5. And the difference between this car and the other cars we race on both Tuesday nights in the Esports series, as well as in the Weekend Warriors, is there's no official races for this car anymore. So this is the only time you get any seat time in this car is in practice. Whether you're practicing on your own or practicing before the races, and then the qualifying in the race session. So it's not like this, we're going to this track this week, so we'll go run a couple of officials to get some experience in the car. So it's basically just about how much time you want to commit to running this car in preparation for this race.
Yeah, that is a good point you bring up there, Charles. Not a whole lot of drivers have extensive seat time in these cars, and the seat time they do have may be a little bit older. In my time on the iRacing platform, which only dates back to 2020, I think I said earlier on in this season that I'd only driven the car just a handful of times before we kicked this season off quite a few weeks ago, and we may see the disparity in terms of seat time in this race car show up in these races. Hey, these drivers, they still get a whole lot of practice, but practice makes perfect, and the more practice practice you can get, the better you'll probably end up on track. Boley must have a whole lot of practice as he's still somehow holding off Josh Justice to remain in that final podium position, despite going off track in very similar fashion 2 laps in a row. Heading through turn number 7, the driver of the number 63 car has still kept it in those podium positions, so I gotta say, nicely played from Boley.
Absolutely, yeah, doing a great job holding off Justice. Justice, obviously, you know, we mention him pretty much every week because he's always up in the thick of the battle, you know, and so he always really does a good job. I think he's one of the best interviews is just basically ask him one question and he'll talk for 5 or 6 minutes, which I love. It means I don't have to talk. He gives us a break. So, but yeah, but Boley's doing a really good job. He's only been here for just a few weeks, but looks like he's pretty racy in this car, and so it'd be good to see him continue on his career here in the Spec Miata.
He's taken to it like a duck in water. I'd love to see Boley show up to some other races, whether it be in the Formula Cars or the Spec Racer Fords this upcoming season. I think we'll be able to have a chat with Stevie Ray once this race is over to kind of talk about what we could expect from lucky number 13, season number 13 from the Ray Esports Racing League, coming this summer for the 2024 Summer Tour. We're looking at a fantastic view from the back of Charles Boley's race car, looking at that rear tire, and it's nice camera angles, I must say, that we have here on Apex Racing TV. Got a whole lot of nice camera shots that we all work on behind the scenes to be like, oh yeah, this looks kind of cool. And I think we still have it. Josh, can we possibly pull up the gyrosphere camera? I'm not sure if we still have it, where we can see all the undulations. Now, this track, it's fairly flat. It's one of the flatter rovals that we have here in the world of iRacing. However, this is probably where it shows up the most, going in and out of the banking. That's a fairly substantial whack, and if you don't run on the racing line, you hit that transition between the flat stuff and the banking, you could spin off. I've done that before, and I'm sure some of these drivers here on track have done it as well. Then you can see the opposite effect. The curb whack on the inside definitely helped that out a lot, but you can see the undulation from Boley's race car. These Spec Miatas also tend to roll a little bit compared to all the other cars that we have on track. So I really like this camera angle just so we can see all the rolling around in the corners. It's like driving around the racetrack in like my 1985 Oldsmobile Cutlass, except these cars probably have a lot more power and are a lot faster.
And probably don't weigh nearly as much either, I would say. having experienced riding around in an 85 Olds Cutlass from many years ago, yeah, these obviously much lighter, much more nimble, but these are not, as we say again, these are not the current MX-5s. So, you know, a little bit older technology, a little older suspension, a little older transmission. That's why we talked about the money shifting, the blowing of the engines earlier, because these are a little more difficult to handle on the downshifts. You have to be pretty careful with them, and so yeah, so it's a little more body roll in this old set of suspensions that we're dealing with here.
So we really have a slow burner race on our hands. We still see Josh Soto. I nearly said Josh Justice. Josh Justice is running down P4. This man, Josh Soto, is leading it with not a whole lot of time left to go. Only 6 minutes left on the clock. He has about 0.6 of a second gap between himself and Miles Gribe in P number 2. But as these two are fairly relaxed, well, I mean, they're still racing as hard as they absolutely can, waiting for one of these drivers to make some sort of mistake and get by one another. I think we should probably bring up the last little historical tidbit that I had written down in my notes for this. And this is actually a pretty interesting story. We've been talking a lot about the Indianapolis 500, but here's a good story relating the SCCA to the Indy 500. This is a little bit long-winded, but bear with me here. For one last time, I think we'll talk about the strange history of auto racing, and one of the strangest was probably the 80s, and back in 1980, during the first ever IndyCar split between USAC and CART, there was a brief truce between the two sides, which fell apart almost immediately. The truce was starting a new series by the name of the Championship Racing League, which lasted for about 3 months, and the main reason why it kind of fell apart was that for some reason the fact that the series was started by the at the time president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that being John Cooper, surprisingly the series could not sanction that year's Indianapolis 500, and because of that announcement, it kind of started a big bidding war in the world of racing about who could sanction that year's 500. There's some interesting contenders, including the National Hot Rod Association and the SCCA, so if there's a small little opening in the universe and there's some alternate history out there, the SCCA could have sanctioned at least one Indy 500 all the way back in 1980, but still, the fact it nearly happened, I think, is pretty interesting, and yeah, we may be putting some people to sleep here on Apex Racing TV. Charles, after that historical anecdote, are you still awake?
I'm still here, getting ready for the last couple laps of this race. Still pretty close gap up there in the front between Soto and Crab. It's opened up a little bit, it's up to like 0.7 of a second, but I don't think that Crab's in any danger of losing unless he makes an error. I don't think he's in danger of losing the toe off the car in front. Kind of keep an eye on that time gap as they're coming down the front straight. You see it just falling. It's down 0.2 already. Now we're down 0.3. So coming down further as we get down to the braking zone. He's braking a little bit early, losing a little bit of time, but he's right there. So it's yeah, just kind of prepping. I think we're going to have 2 laps to go here. So we'll just batten down the hatches here and see if we get a good battle up to the start finish line as we've had the last couple of races that we had tonight.
In terms of their lap times, they're actually fairly evenly matched. In terms of their best laps of the race, Josh Soto sits at 144.77. Meanwhile, Miles Crab is at 144.87. So that's pretty close in terms of their best lap. And in terms of their last laps, they're both in the 145.2 and 145.3 range. Soto at a 145.26, and Crab at a 145.33. I will say Charles Boley matching actually, my eye's doing me this service. I was going to say he's matching him quite well. He's actually at 146.35. So I was about to say very close between those two. That I noticed it was a 6 instead of 5. So my eyes once again deceiving me. It's a little bit late. It's 10:22, coming some slack. So anyways, just looking at the live timing screen, the stuff that really speaks out to me is the fact that Josh Soto stands above the rest here in this race, up 9 spots from where he started. That is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, he's having a great race. He's managed to clear the field, got up to the front. He's done this a couple of times this season, but the fight's not over yet. And I think is this the white flag lap? 2 minutes left. Nope, we're going to have one more after this. So 2 laps to go now. So yeah, it's I think Crab is in a good position. I don't think that there's any danger. I think Crab ran 0.2 faster last lap. But you can definitely tell with half a second, 0.6 of a second, tires are starting to give way just a little bit, so they don't have the new, so that might play into this before it's all said and done.
Holy cow! My weary eyes may really be deceiving me, because I think we had the top speed graphic up. I saw Andre Jamison had set a top speed of 193 miles an hour. Yeah, you can see there 193 miles an hour. That is not accurate. I think it's probably closer to at most 123 miles an hour. But hey, that may be the fastest we've ever seen a spec Miata car move the entire. Actually, no, I think last time out at the Glen we saw a car go 240 miles an hour very briefly. So I think iRacing, it's an old car, so maybe the iRacing telemetry is a little bit out of whack. 193 miles an hour. I think that may be like exceeding terminal velocity for these cars. You can like drop them from space and have one go 193 miles an hour. So maybe some nitrous or perhaps some rocket power helping Andre Jamison shoot up to that speed. Sadly, he's out of the race, so we can't see that blistering power behind underneath the hood of that number 25 car. But looking at the front of the field, Soto is going to be leading them coming to the white flag lap. Crab right behind as well. They're evenly matched pace-wise, and they're coming coming to the last lap of the race. There's 14 corners left to go to decide the final winner of the 2024 Spring Tour Runoffs from the Ray Esports Racing League. And you can see Soto desperately trying to break that slipstream, running all the way into the inside pit wall. However, it's not going to be enough, and they nearly made contact. They made contact heading in to turn at number 1. That was a pretty big hip check from Soto, giving it to Miles Crabbe, and we may see a bump and run there, very close to making contact. Heading through turns 1 and 2, they're still very close on corner exit. I don't think Miles Crabbe is going to appreciate that, so we may see some elbows get broken out between these two. If I was Miles Crabbe and I got door bang going down the start-finish straightaway, I would not be very, very happy. We'll just have to wait and see how he manages these final few corners on the lap. Very aggressive on the curbs, coming around the chicane for the final time. The inside curb on turn number 6 has been abused quite a lot throughout this race. It's not been good if you're that curb, and it's not good if you're Miles Crabbe. He closes up along the braking zone at turn 7 and hits that inside curb dramatically. However, I thought he was going to go off the track, but he actually gained a whole lot of time. He's going to have to be really careful here coming into turn number 10. He picked up a slowdown the Spec Racer Ford race earlier on this evening. He gets through there clean. He has one more real opportunity to try and get a move done. The slipstream in these cars isn't too powerful, but he's going to have to try and savor it for all he can. Heading into turn number 12 for the final time, 102 miles an hour the speed is. Heading into the corner, gets very close to the back of Josh Soto's race car, but I think it's going to be too little, too late if you're Miles Crabbe. We thought it was going to be a runaway performance for the driver of the 131 car. However, he got swamped at the start, and looks like Josh Soto, who started this race in 10th after not even bothering to set a qualifying time, is going to cut his way through the field like a hot knife through butter and take the final checkered flag from tonight's 2024 Spring Tour Runoffs from the Ray Esports Racing League. Soto wins it, Crabbe in P number 2, and I think it's fairly cut and dry for the final podium position. It looks like Charles Boley is going to be the one winning out in that fight between himself and Josh Justice. Man, that was, I think Crabbe may have, I wonder if he picked up any sort of damage with that contact between himself and Soto heading into turn number 1, because that was pretty substantial, particularly at a high speed.
It was a pretty good hit, little like hip check, as you called it. I think that's exactly the term I would use. But no, I just think that Soto just, once he got in the lead, he just didn't really make a mistake. He was right on his line. Crabbe was able to catch up some time into a couple braking zones and just keep the pressure on him, but he didn't make a mistake going in through any of the infield section, and he got a great run coming out of the final corner and is able to hold off Crabbe at the end. And so a nice P2 by Crabbe, good win by Soto, obviously. Back to first challenge complete, so he checked that one off the list. And so good race overall, though. Only that one major incident we had at the beginning, as we see Andrew Rosencroft looping around. Already finished off his race as well with a nice P5.
Just getting a little bit of added seat time when the series returns in just a few weeks' time for season number 13. And I'll tell you what, the Spec Miatas have put on some pretty good shows all throughout the season. That was a slow burner, but it was still close between Soto and Crabbe at the very north end of the field. And that great racing that we just saw from the Spec Miatas would not be possible if it weren't for another one of the great sponsors we have here from the Ray Esports Racing League, that being Grassroots Motorsports. Built for true sports car enthusiasts, Grassroots Motorsports has one mission: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it be online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print, or at the track, the racers, mechanics, and car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports will take you behind the scenes and teach you how to improve your car. Grassroots Motorsports has a taste of everything that you may want out of this hobby that we all know and love. Whether you want to hear stories about 1,000 horsepower track monsters or cool street cruisers built in a driveway, they have got you covered. Grassroots Motorsports also has a collection of staff-maintained project cars and a catalog of articles as well. Articles breaking down the ins and outs of cars written in a garage with greasy hands rather than type from behind a desk in a prim and proper office. If you'd like to read, learn, and be a part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. Grassroots Motorsports is a proud partner of the Ray Esports Racing League and the sponsor of the Spec Miatas. And Charles, I think we have our winner and hard charger from tonight, Josh Soto, waiting to have a chat with us.
Yeah, let's talk to Josh. Josh, congratulations. First challenge complete. Great drive up. Really only had that one incident at the start of the race. So just talk about your battle, especially with Miles Crabbe there on the last, basically the last half of the race.
Oh yeah, it was a great battle. Going into the final lap, you know, he was beginning to close the gap, and so I decided to take the inside line, and I accidentally made contact with him. I thought he was heading more left, but made a little bit of contact, but we were able to continue to drive, and yeah, it was just pretty much just try to maintain the lead and managed to make it work on the last lap. But yeah, Miles Crab had amazing pace. Is very competitive up there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really good battle between you two guys. So we talked about this a little bit in the race, and I don't think we mentioned it, but this is really the only time you guys get to drive this older version of the Miata is here on Tuesday nights, because they don't really have an official series. So how hard is it to just kind of get? Obviously, you do a pretty good job when you come in. It looks like you're ready to race. So so how difficult is it to jump in this car, kind of cold, and kind of get used to all of its little idiosyncrasies that it has with the gearbox and the car roll and things like that?
Oh yeah, it's actually pretty easy. I have a ton of track time in this particular model, as well as like the ND platform. But I also race in another league that does these type of cars, so it's pretty much just muscle memory for me at this point. But yeah, I really do wish that they had brung these cars back into the official series. I would really like to see that.
Yeah, maybe that's something we'll have to think about, see if we can get iRacing to come up with. They're not usually one to do that, but you never know. So, hey, Josh, congratulations, great race. Congrats on the win, and we'll see you next season.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would like to thank Grass's Motorsports, or Esports, everybody that's involved. Also Apex Racing for their amazing broadcasting and all that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I think get them sponsors in there.
And that was Josh Soto, who put on a fantastic show, and we'll have a chat with a man who's the other side of that fight, Miles Crab. That was a hard fight between yourself and Josh Soto here in the Spec Miata race. Talk us through that there.
Yeah, I had to cool off a little bit afterwards. I was not going to finish fourth this race, I know that much. I just, when he joined the session, I knew he'd be the one I'd be racing against, so I tried to drive away. Start was bad. I missed a shift and fell back to fourth or something, but got back to the lead at the end of lap 2, or the beginning of lap 2, and tried to drive away, and he caught up to me. At the end there, I had just a tiny bit more pace. I was actually running my best laps in the last 5 laps, and he had fallen off a bit, but yeah, I was listening to his interview, a little miscommunication on the front straight. I have a personal rule, whereas if you block, or not block, but defend to Never Never Land, you better figure out how to make it through Never Never Land. And I saw him coming back up, and I gave him half the racetrack, and I stopped going back towards the wall, and he kept coming up. And if I'd have been a little bit more alongside, it wouldn't have turned me towards the wall and had to make me lift. But yeah, it was a fun race. I wish I would have won. Like, it was getting really annoying finishing fourth because of my own mistakes on the last lap, and I had a shot at him. I just couldn't make it hook up. He did everything he had to do in the last 4 corners to keep me back there. So good job to Josh.
Well, if it's any sort of consolation, you definitely got a whole lot of screen time during this broadcast. You're involved in all the fights and all the classes that you ran with here tonight. So, yeah, I think it was a fairly, well, it was hectic, a very hectic evening for you, whether it be in the Spec Racer Fords, the Formula Vs, or the Spec Miatas. So I'll ask you this here real quick. What do you think of all 3 races that you're a part of this evening? Kind of break all of them down for us.
Well, Spec Racer was a heads-up fight between Jameson, myself, and Andrew. And Andrew took advantage of a mistake on it. There was a 4th person there, and I can't remember. I'm about to pull up the results. Christian. Yeah. Yeah, it was just a heads-up fight. I was not I don't know what was different, but I could not brake nearly as deep as Christian could. He was kicking all of our butts on the brakes, and Justin had a little bit more exit speed, and I was just kind of in the middle. And on the last lap, I cut too hard, or something. Man, we got into a weird position going into turn 1, and I just didn't send it on anybody, and I probably really should have. And then I tried to get a run coming around to pass somebody into the infield section, and I cut too tight and got to slow down and gave Andrew third. And then V's was just, again, it was me and Jameson and Michelle and Andrew again, and we kind of single filed for a minute, and then we got pretty good at doing the shake and bake. At least me and Jameson did. Ford's only passed us twice. It was a non-issue. And on the last lap, I tried to make it interesting into one, and everybody was willing to go a whole lot deeper. And going through the switchback, I locked wheels with Jameson, and the car did weird, like it spun in place and then shot me out the wrong way. If it had just spun me to the left, it had been fine, but it ended up just falling back. And then I missed a shift coming to the line and gave Michelle third. So, yeah, all mistakes on my part, all great racing, all hard racing. I punted Jameson in the Spec Racer Fords on accident, and he saved it. And I'd have felt really bad because he was the class of that field. And I got into his draft and was like 5 miles an hour too fast when I hit the brakes. So yeah, a lot of great racing between a lot of really good drivers, and it's been like that all season pretty much.
And hopefully we'll see you back on track with the Right Esports Racing League when Season 13 starts up in just a few weeks' time, hopefully, within probably once July starts up will probably be when this series returns. We're not exactly sure when this series is going to come back, but when it does, fingers crossed you are a part of it. Just final thoughts on the way this season has gone for you. Of course, walking away with the championships in the Spec Racer Fords, the Spec Miatas, and the Formula Fords. So just final thoughts on the season you had. From our perspective, it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, this is the second time I've pulled off the hat trick in the season, and the second time that I've only podiumed once in the runoffs after doing it. So it's across the whole season, it's a lot of fun racing with the same people every week because you get really comfortable with everybody, and you get total trust with everybody, and it comes to a head at this last race when everybody just kind of sends it, and we run as hard as we can every lap. I will say this: every lap minus like 3 of the middle laps in V were qualifying laps. Like we did these, this was about as fast as all of these cars can go, because basically the best FF, best SRF, best V, and best MX5 drivers are in here. So that's about all it's got. But yeah, I'll probably be back. I have a tendency to do every other season, just from burnout, frankly. But thank you all for broadcasting as always. Hi to everybody. Hi, Jessica. I'm going to name you first, so I don't combine your name with anybody's this time. Hi, Mom. Hi, Steven, Ren, whoever's still watching. And thank you all for broadcasting. Thank you, Stevie, for putting all this on. He does a lot of work behind the scenes.
Oh, he does some absolutely tremendous work. If it weren't for him, none of this would be possible, and we wouldn't be able to see you win 3 championships this season and put on one heck of a show in all the races you're a part of here this evening. Miles, thank you for joining us again. Congratulations on the 3 championships, and fingers crossed we'll see you back on track in the not-too-distant future.
Oh, you'll see me somewhere.
I'm sure we will. That was Miles Crab. I think maybe our last interview, unless we can bring in Stevie Ray to have a quick little chat. He wanted to join us midway through the race, but I think it was my decision to kind of wait for the end of this broadcast to have a quick little chat to kind of talk about what things are going to look like in the not-too-distant future here from the Right Esports Racing League. As I mentioned, while this is the end of Season 12, the 2024 Spring Tour, it's been a pretty entertaining one. We've had very, very fun moments, I will say. I'm also remembering the very funny time in which my voice completely gave out at the end of a broadcast at Homestead, Miami about a month and a half ago. Some pretty fun memories from this season. It must be said, some hard racing as well. Charles, what are your thoughts on the season that we've just had?
I mean, it's been tremendous. I've enjoyed it every week. As always, there's always something new that we can talk about. But the racing is always, as you said, is always hard but respectful. And this is the reason this community is just amazing. All these drivers just go 110%, but keep it clean, and that's why I enjoy doing these broadcasts. And Stevie always kind of comes up with something a little new every season. So obviously this season it was the Spec Miata, which we haven't seen in a while, replacing the MX-5. So you never know. We'll just kind of wait and see what the next season holds. But I think that a lot of drivers that we talked to really enjoyed running the Spec Miata. But maybe there's some changes coming down with one of the other series, either Spec Racer Ford or the Formula V. That was the discussion beginning of the last season about maybe having 2 Formula cars that were rain ready so we could run some wet races. I'm not sure that's going to work, just based on what we saw with some of the Weekend Warriors races we had. Lake Sebring comes to mind. But it's always fun. It's always a great race. They always put on a good show. And so I'm here for it. Whenever they're ready to come back, I'm ready to roll.
And I completely agree with you there, Charles. There's a whole lot of stuff to look forward to here from the Ray Esports Racing League. There could be some changes for next season. Could be some stuff going on track. Regardless of how it is going to be absolutely exciting from start to finish. This season was really enjoyable to be a part of, from the first race all the way back at VIR many moons ago to the race that we just had, the runoffs at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Fun stuff from start to finish, and hopefully everyone's going to be back with us on the ride when the 2024 Summer Tour starts in just a few weeks' time. And I think before we wrap things up, we should once again thank all the wonderful sponsors that we have here from the Ray Esports Racing League. With that, Personal Well Solutions in the Spec Racer Fords, Grassroots Motorsports in the Spec Miatas, Sim Motion in the Formula Fords, Trailbreak.com in the Formula Vs, the Inside the SCCA podcast, who have been a partner with us all throughout this season, and the SCCA Foundation, who have jumped on board to be a proud partner of the Runoffs. If it weren't for them and the wonderful people behind the scenes, this series, these broadcasts would simply not be possible. Again, I said this last week at the end of the regular season. I'll say it again. If you get a chance, thank all these sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be able to show you all this great racing that these drivers put on week in and week out. So I think for one last time here from the 2024 Spring Tour, that will do it. So for myself, Ron Mons, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a wonderful job all season long in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching Season 12 of the Ray Esports Racing League, and we hope to see you all again in the not-too-distant future.
The SCCA Foundation is a 501c3 organization serving as the charitable arm of the Sports Car Club of America. One of the programs partially funded by the foundation is the SCCA Academy, an online learning management system used to keep real-life racing track officials up to date on the highest standards of race safety and officiating. Through this program, the SCCA Foundation is supporting the future of the best trained corner workers and event officials in motorsport. You can support these efforts at www.sccafoundation.org.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, You owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.